Of Councilman Williams, Barnes Caldwell, Weatherspoon, Brewer, Lay, Atkins. So we are only Miss Councilwoman Brown. Are you on?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay. We're going to start in 1 minute. This is a reminder, if at all possible, when members are speaking, if you could turn your video on. For those who are in the chamber, you need to mute when you're not speaking to prevent feedback and echo. I see our deputy clerk is here. Good to see you. Attorney Colvin, we want to make sure that, I don't know whether she's here or not, but I would imagine she will be, given the budget conversation. So media team, do you see Arlene Colvin? Do we have her as a panelist? Okay, well, when she logs on, she should be. Okay. Because we're going to okay. Voting info. That's right. Do you see if Tony Walker is on? Make Dan Vicari a panelist just in case. Dan Vicari. And, Councilwoman Atkins.
Good evening, Ms. Brown. The city council meeting has just started. I sent you a text saying that the city council meeting is about to start. Yeah, just I said also in the text, give me a call back. Okay. Is it important? Is it important? No, I said, is it important? Is it a matter of dollars?
I think you should mute yourself, Councilman Williams.
Oh, okay, thank you. Bye.
I thought you were talking to us, Councilman Williams. You're not muted. I just want to let you know. Okay. Good evening and welcome to the October 20th, 2020 regular meeting of the Gary Common Council. As is our custom, we will begin with a word of prayer, which will be brought to us by Councilman at Large, Ron Brewer.
Thank you. Shall we pray? Father God, in the name of Jesus, we thank you, oh God, for another day that you have allowed us to see and to participate in, oh God, with our health and our strength, oh God. We ask right now, oh God, as we assemble to do the work that you have allowed us to be appointed to, that we will be mindful of the people of Gary as we make the decisions, oh God. Oh God, we ask right now that you bless each and every last one of us right now. Lord, we ask that you bless bereaved families that's going through, oh God, right now. Comfort them where they're weak, build them up right now. Lord, as we continue to walk this walk that you allowed us to do, oh God, we ask that you be with us, lead us and guide us and direct us. In your son, Jesus' name, we give you praise and glory. Amen.
Man, thank you, Councilman Brewer, for so faithfully offering our prayer once again this year. This time we will have our Pledge of Allegiance. Those who can, please stand. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
And
to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Atkins,
Here.
Councilman Brewer,
Here.
Councilwoman Brown,
Present.
Councilwoman Caldwell. Here. Councilman Godwin,
Present.
Councilman Lay,
Present.
Councilman Weatherspoon,
Here.
Councilman Williams,
Here.
and President Brown. Mr. President, there are 8 present, 1 absent.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. With 8 members present, we have a quorum to conduct the business of the Gary Common Council. Council members, before you are the minutes of our Tuesday, October 6, 2020 meeting. Is there a motion to approve said minutes?
So move, Mr. President.
Been moved by Councilman Brewer and seconded by Councilwoman Brown. Any questions or discussion? Seeing and hearing none, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Atkins,
Yes.
Councilman Brewer,
Yes.
Councilwoman Brown,
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell,
Yes.
Councilman Lay,
Yes.
Councilman Weatherspoon,
Yes.
Councilman Williams,
Yes.
and President Godwin.
Yes.
Mr. President, the vote is 8-0.
With the vote of 8-0, the minutes of our October 6, 2020 meeting are approved. We have no matters, no ordinances or resolutions on first reading. So at this time, we will begin our special and select. I did want to just start off as a matter of housekeeping to ensure that members, of course, and the general public know that our next regular meeting will be on Monday, November 2nd, 2020 at 6:00 p.m. and not on Tuesday, November 3rd, which is Election Day. And I'm certainly hopeful that all residents of Gary who are registered to vote will vote. Genesis Convention Center, the lines have been there, and it's an easy process. And I encourage all residents to vote. We may say something later about the times, but please make sure that your voice is heard. If you have any questions about how to vote or what to do, feel free to call the council office. Not for whom to vote, of course, but if you have questions about the process of voting, where to vote, when to vote, what to do, 219-881-1315. Any other members for special and select?
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Barnes Caldwell.
please join Beyond Four Walls Christian Center for their free food giveaway. This is every Thursday at 11 a.m. The address is 875 South Lake Street, Gary, Indiana. First come, first serve. Right now, they have approximately 750 boxes that they're giving away, and it's open to the general public. Thank you.
Any other members for special and select?
Mr. President,
Councilman Williams?
I'd like to remind the residents of the 6th District that Zoom meeting 21st of this month at 6 o'clock. And for any information, please call down to City Hall, ask for Sherry Smith.
Okay. Any other members for special and select?
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Atkins?
if it's appropriate during this time, I wanted to ask a couple of questions to possibly, I guess, Ms. Arlene Colvin or anyone from the administration who can help us just interpret some of the financial data that was sent in the email yesterday respective to the account balances. I know later on in the agenda, we do have a review of CPO 2020-50 as well as 51, but these questions are not specific to the operating budget or the salary budget. It's more so to the accounts in terms of the reconciliation of the account balances. So if it's okay, then I want to proceed with these questions at this time. Yep. Okay. So I had some questions. I first wanted to thank Ms. Arlene Colvin for providing us with this data. Some of the information that we was able to get in front of us was just the balances on the number of counts for the city of Gary. So I had some questions. Also, we got the, I think the year-to-date for revenues as well as year-to-date for expenditures. So just wanted to get some clarification questions that I think might be helpful for all members of the council. So the first question that I wanted to confirm is respective to the accounts payable number. So on the document that we received, accounts payable total was about 10.7 million. So I wanted to confirm if that was an actual number, if that was actually valid. A lot of the accounts payable, I guess claims, if you will, that was listed was respective to the AIM medical insurance, and some of it was dated, if I'm reading it correctly, I think it also had the days payable outstanding listed on that document. And so some of the claims were submitted from last year, earlier in 2019. So I just wanted to confirm if that was the correct number shown in that document of 10.7 million.
The 10.7 million is what is shown in our RDS system.
Okay.
What we're in the process of doing is reconciling that. No, most of those claims, especially the Ames claims, have already been paid. So no, the number is not accurate. That 10 million is not accurate from RDS. We do, however, we are, however, in the process of reconciling. So you'll get a different or a more complete expenditure report that shows that reconciliation, but that's in process right now.
Okay. A follow-up to that one, Ms. Colvin, have we currently paid all of our liabilities that are federal or state liabilities?
By that, do you mean taxes or what do you mean?
Yes, ma'am. Like any taxes that we had, any potential or budgeted loan payments that might have been from a state or federal perspective at this time?
Yes, we have. Our taxes are up to date. Loans, I guess I'm not quite sure what you're referring to, but there are no loan payments that are currently due.
Okay. So just like any federal or state agencies that we had any liability payments. So the state
I may
like
not
taxes.
be following what you're asking without you giving me a specific
agency,
but and if you could give that to me, I could answer more completely.
Okay, I'll send an email
Okay.
with the list that I had in terms of that. I don't have it in front of me and I don't want to waste too much time.
Okay.
And then on the banking statement, there was an account that stated special revenue.
Right.
Could you confirm what type of expenditures could come from this account?
It depends. Some people are paid from special revenues, depending upon, what account we're talking about. For example, the EMTs are paid from Fund 224, and that's a special revenue account. It depends on which bank you're talking about as well.
It's the one at the top that has the $3.5 million balance.
I don't have a document in front of me, so I don't know
Okay.
what you're saying.
So on the file that you sent us, the very first account that you have listed, it has bank number 10, and the ID is 1. It says special revenues. The account number ends in 0550. The closing ledger is 3.5 million, like 3.594 million.
That's a combination of many different kinds of special revenues. So it's not just one source. So like I said, it depends. Some of it is depending on the source, grant funds. Some of it is miscellaneous revenue like Fund 224. Some of the money comes from taxes. It just depends on what we're talking about. But anything that is not 101 general fund goes into the special revenue account.
So what can be expensed out of that funding? Does that make sense?
It depends upon what the council has approved a budget for. So for example, if there is a program where there are salaries and other department expenses expensed out of a particular fund, then that will be paid out of there. It just depends. And I guess you would need to give me something a little bit more specific for me to be able to tell you.
I just wanted to understand if we had $3 million in an account and it was the account name with special revenues, like what expenditures could be used from that account, you know, or how to find that out. Is it only salaries? Is it only capital expenditures?
No, it's different things. But what I can do is give you a list of the funds that are paid from the departments or the funds programs that are paid from that particular.
Paid from that one. Yes, ma'am. Okay. And then my last one for you, again, just trying to understand the accounts and then what are expensed out of the various accounts. The last one is the equipment replacement fund. It's 2 here. One of them says Fund 435. Well, both of them says Fund 435, but it's 2 different balances. There's one balance that has 4.8 million, and the other one has 2.6 million. This is Centier Banks.
Okay.
Could you again just help me understand, and maybe this is a question that you could send us a follow-up to, just what type of the file?
A lot of the Centier accounts are Gary Sanitary District, but I need to check to make sure.
Okay, and so just the same question for those 2, what type of expenditures or, you know, expenses could be used from that? Because that's what, almost $8 million that we have under equipment replacement fund.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. President, thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Atkins. Other members for special and select?
Mr. President,
Councilman Lay?
I will be on the Tommy Latrice radio program tomorrow, Wednesday, 21st at 3 p.m. at my own expense. During my time on the radio program, I will discuss the following the following subjects, which will be repeated on Author Jerry Heyman's page on Facebook until November the 3rd, 2020. The first is fact-checking the emergency manager, Dr. McNulty, and MGT, because the last mailing appeared to have come from Indianapolis and not from Gary. 2, I will be discussing the Gary City Council handling of the Gary Sanitary District Ordinance 2020-69 and the text and telephone conversation with the former Mayor Karen Freeman Wilson. 3, I will discuss Mayor Jerome Prince providing security for his immediate family. Another subject that will be probably a lot of fun is the upcoming checker match between Dr. J, and he's not the basketball player, and myself on October the 31st at 2 to 5 at Gleason Clubhouse. I have not played a match in the state of Indiana for more than 20 years. So again, it should be a lot of fun. If he beats me, I will send him a pizza and a pop. Thank you, Mr. President.
That's not too bad of a bet.
No, it's not a bet now. No.
All right.
I'm going to send him a pizza and a pop.
Sounds good. Thank you, Councilman Lay. And as we are discussing radio, The Gary Common Council show will be on Friday, November 6th at 10:30 a.m. I'm getting a little bit of echo. I think some folks are unmuted in the chamber, but it will be Friday, November 6th at 10:30 a.m. on WLTH. Other members for special and select,
Mr. President,
Councilman Brewer.
wanted to just take this time to send my condolences out to Markel Watkins and the loss of his mother on this past week. Want to just let him know that we are definitely praying for him and the entire family. I know he does have a large family, but me and Markel went to school together, and I want to just let him know that we continue to pray for him, and he's in our thoughts and prayers. And also to Deborah Carrington, and just so over a week or so ago, she lost her mother, Mrs. Sams, who was a former teacher at the Roosevelt High School for over 40 plus years. We want to also send our condolences out to her and her family also. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, and I want to echo those condolences, both for Mr. Watkins, who's resident of the First District, grew up in Etna, as well as to my good friend, Mrs. Deborah Carrington, and her mom, Mrs. Joanne Sams, as Councilman Brewer indicated, who I think for over 50 years was an employee with the Gary Community School Corporation, and for 45 years was with Roosevelt High School, served in the athletics department, in the administration office, and so certainly a huge loss. There was a balloon release at Roosevelt Saturday after the funeral, and so we certainly want to celebrate her life and her legacy and her family here in the city of Gary. Any other members for special and select?
Mr. President,
Councilman Weatherspoon.
yes, I too would like to echo those same sentiments to the Carrington and Sams family, both Deborah and Terry. Mrs. Sams was also a resident of the Second District as well, living over on Harrison Street. And so again, I would like to echo those same sentiments. Thank you.
Thank you. I do have before me, and Mr. Attorney Walker is on, and he might also speak to this. This is the agreement regarding the construction of the rail project. Many of you have heard about the new and improved South Shore line that will improve the commute time from Northwest Indiana into the city of Chicago. And part of that will be the reconstruction of the Miller Station as it relates to Gary. There's also going to be work happening in the Gary, Indiana platform downtown. But transit-oriented development will be taking place. There will be a relationship between the community and NICD and the state and the federal government and all the partners who are playing a role in this. As part of that, there is essentially an MOU, an agreement between the civil city, the city council, Board of Public Works, sanitary district, collectively defined the mayor, collectively defined as community, and the Northern Indiana Community Transportation District operating the South Shore line. What I would like to do after Attorney Walker gives a brief overview of this is to ask via vote for you, my colleagues, the council, to authorize me to sign this agreement, which I have emailed to everyone. There's nothing particular, we don't necessarily have to be able to sign it, but it is a courtesy to include us in this agreement. Attorney Walker, would you like to shed further light?
Yes, Mr. President, and thank you for the opportunity, and good evening to you and all the council members. I apologize that this came to you late. It's because we just concluded the negotiation with NICD a couple of days, well, I think on last Thursday or Friday, when I sent it to Councilman Godwin. And what it really is, it just lays out a broad overview of the understanding of how the construction and development of the new Miller South Shore Station will take place and who's going to be responsible for what. Our staff did a fantastic job in catching some things that NICD was originally planning to do that would have had put limitations on the development around that station for bringing in other commercial enterprises. So we basically had to stay with NICD through an extended period of time, getting it down to an understanding we could all agree with. And that's what is reflected in that document. Now, the council really doesn't have to sign off on it, but Mayor Prince and Mr. Nolan of NICD thought it would be a great idea to present it to the council as well. So we have sort of a unified front to the federal government when this document is presented later this week to the Federal Transportation Authority for the final funding for the project. So we're asking that you consider that, and we have a signatory line on there for the acting president, and we hope you find favorably in support of that. And thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Attorney Walker. Do any members have any questions related to this matter?
Yes, Mr. President.
Councilman Brewer?
Yes, so I know that we have 3 stations inside of Gary, and we're basically only talking about one. What is the development plans for the other 2? Because I know there was talks when this all first started. I just want to know where we're at with that. Is that something else that will come with a different agreement for the other 2 stations, or right now we just focus on the Miller station? Yes.
Councilman Brewer, that's a great question. Right now, the NICD is only financing a new station for Miller, but the city did supplement our original proposals to NICD, where we want to draw transportation development districts where we can take advantage of some of the same economic incentives, both downtown and at Clark Road. So those are things that are in the process, but the initial round of funding for the double tracking is only going to include a new station at Miller for now, but we are going to have transportation development districts that we'll be able to leverage to do development projects both downtown and around Clark Road.
Thank you, Attorney Walker.
Mr. President, I did
Councilman Lay?
have, what is NICD? I mean, would you sort of lay it out so the public will understand other than what appears to be a nickname?
Right. So NICD is the Northern Indiana Commuter Transportation District, which operates and runs the South Shore line between South Bend and Millennium Station.
Does that, I'm not sure, maybe I should ask you the question. This city, under the time that Mayor Freeman was, the former Mayor Freeman was in office, they gave away their local income tax from the county, I believe, for 30 years. Does this have anything to do with that? Mr. Walker?
I don't believe so, but Attorney Walker?
I don't believe so.
So both of you don't believe so. Do you in fact have a definitive answer? Either it's part of it. Didn't we give away approximately 30 years of local tax money to do
Referring
something?
to the TIF?
No.
Referring to the West.
No, this was not a TIF. This was not a TIF.
About Westlake.
I think that went to Westlake, Attorney Lay.
Yeah, that was not a TIF though.
Right.
Yeah,
Is that
it
correct?
wasn't for this particular double track project, but it did go to NICD for the Westlake project. And you are correct about that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, I would like to entertain a motion for the Gary Common Council to authorize its acting president to sign the agreement regarding construction of rail project.
Mr. President,
Councilman Brewer,
so move.
it's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions or discussion? Hearing and seeing none, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Atkins,
Yes.
Councilman Brewer,
Yes.
Councilwoman Brown,
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell,
Yes.
Councilman Lay,
Yes.
Councilman Weatherspoon,
Yes.
Councilman Williams,
Yes.
President Godwin.
Yes.
Mr. President, the vote is 8-0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. With a vote of 8-0, the City Council has authorized its acting president to sign, quote, the agreement regarding construction of rail project, unquote. Thank you to my colleagues. And thank you, Attorney Walker, for your assistance in this matter. Any other members for special and select? I did want to note that at a previous I believe Finance Committee meeting, I mentioned the importance of our police and public safety and being competitive in terms of properly funding them. I did have the opportunity to follow up on that conversation with Officer President Wolf of the Fraternal Order of Police for the city of Gary. And he expressed some concerns as well as some desires as it relates to our budget. I wanted to give him an opportunity. We don't often hear from the Fraternal Order of Police to speak on some of his concerns and thoughts. And he is on this evening. So President Wolf.
Councilman Godwin.
Yes, you're here. Thank you. Go forward.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate the opportunity to speak before you tonight. The Fraternal Order of Police wants to express, and so the council is aware, as the city is aware, of the importance of maintaining our police department and our manpower as far as the strength of our force. We are currently in a situation, unfortunately, where we don't have the pool of applicants that are coming in. We're losing officers to retirement, to other things, and most importantly, to other departments. And a big reason for that is due to competitive wages. And we obviously are seeking, since we haven't had a raise and we'll be going into year 4 without a raise, our contention is that we need to get that number up to pay our officers a little bit better, to be more competitive, being now that we are the low, now that East Chicago got a raise, we fall under them, we fall under a lot of departments to where we can't compete. So we're having a hard time with the candidate pool. The problem with this happening is losing officers. This creates a safety issue for our citizens. It creates extended response times for our citizens. It creates vulnerable situations for our police officers and the safety of them. And, you know, I don't mean this to be comical, but when the mayor of the city calls the police and he has an extended wait time for us to respond to him, that tends to be a problem. And that shows a lot. So if the mayor is waiting, you know, our citizens are waiting, and that's not good. And our stance on it currently is to secure the safety of our citizens with the size of our city, with the amount of citizens we have, with the crime rate, what it is. We have to maintain what we have at the very least. We need more officers. We're at 157 right now. That creates a big manpower issue for us in patrol, in investigations, and our specialty units that processes crime scenes, things of that nature. And it gets to a point where now you don't have a community relation with your police department because our officers are running call to call. They don't have time to spend that they necessarily should be spending with citizens. And retention and recruitment is key to this. And the way you're going to retain officers is you're going to pay them a little bit better. And the way that you're going to recruit more officers is you're going to be competitive with other police departments. And so we've proposed to the city that we would like to see a raise and a few other things to try and get this moved. And unfortunately, it seems that, you know, the city's in financial constraints, and there's things that, you know, money's tied up on, but we feel that this is one of the most important things that needs to take place, because we need to get out of the realm of the police department being a reactive police department and becoming a more proactive police department to curb the crime. We all know you curb crime, you create opportunities for businesses and residents that want to move back to Gary and things of that nature. So I just wanted to express that to the council before you, to show you kind of where we stand and what our desires are and what our concerns are. And the number one concern is the safety of our citizens. Having police out there where citizens drive down the street and they see a police car, or they drive down the street, or they can go to sleep at night knowing that a police car is going to drive past their house. We don't have that right now. So hiring and getting competitive wages is very important to us right now. And I thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight, and I hope to work with everybody in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you, President Wolf. I want you to know that you have my full support. Public safety, if we don't have anything else, we got a lot of conversations going on about schools, economic development, all kinds of projects, but if we don't have public safety, we don't have anything. And I know that, that this budget is tight and that it will require some heavy lifting. And there may have to be some cuts in some things we'd like to have in order to do some things that we must have. And I know that we are not competitive. I talk to a lot of police officers weekly. And I know that we are losing officers, and I know the cities all around us are grabbing our officers. And so I certainly look forward to, as much as I can individually, and maybe others, colleagues would like to support the Fraternal Order of Police in ensuring that this budget is responsive to their needs. That's just my position on it. Councilman Lay?
Yes, as I understand it, and if you don't know, please let Mr. Wolf answer. As you increase the wages of the police, you also increase the retirees. Is that still correct, Mr. Wolf?
That is, Mr. Lay. And it's, if you raise the first class patrolman rate, that, and I think what you're asking is what the retirement percentage of wages when an officer does retire. Is that what you're asking?
Well, the people have already retired. When you raise, increase the pay of that patrolman, don't you increase the pay of the retirees at the same time?
That's partially true. There's two retirement funds. There's a 1925 fund and there is a 1977 fund. The 1925 fund, yes, they get the raises that we get.
Oh, okay.
And then the 77 fund does not.
The other question, I guess this would be to Mr. Godwin. What percentage of our budget is now the police and firemen? What percentage is it? I believe it's a very substantial percentage of our budget.
I believe it is roughly 80%. I'm not scientific on that, but I think it's roughly around that number. It's pretty high.
May I ask the question of Attorney Colvin? I see she's on, but she's muted.
Yes,
What is the percentage of the current city budget for the police and firemen?
80% is about right.
80%. Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other questions for President Wolf?
Yes, Mr. President, I have one question for Mr. Wolf. Mr. Wolf, Councilman Weatherspoon here. What is the average age Erie Police Department? And is there some sort of retainment or time period that new officers have to serve before they can, go to other departments?
So there is currently I don't know exactly what it's called, but there's a form that I believe that new officers sign that if they don't stay a certain period of time, that they would be required to pay back a certain portion of academy fees or something along them lines. I'm not sure exactly what that criteria is. The average age of the police department, I don't have an exact, so I don't want to pretend to know. If I had to guess, I would probably say somewhere between the age of 30 to 37, maybe 35 to 40, somewhere in there. It's hard to gauge. But one thing I wanted to point out that I left out before when I spoke is one thing we have to keep in mind as well is we have 157 officers. We have 67 officers that are eligible for retirement, meaning we have 67 officers that have 20 years plus that could conceivably walk out the door if they wanted to. Now, is that likely? No, but the opportunity is there. And that's kind of a large number when you're talking about only 157 officers and 67 of them are eligible for retirement with 20 years. And within a year and a half, I'll be in that category with about maybe another 15, 20 people.
Okay. Any other? What I will say is that I will ask Mr. Outlar, our council financial advisor, to work with President Wolf and any other members who are interested in considering this proposal to look at the numbers, to consider the point that Councilman Lay made in terms of parity and what the implications are, and in terms of retirees, so we have a sense of what this would cost. Obviously, an amendment may be necessary to the budget with cuts in some areas in order to support gains in other areas if that's the pleasure of this body. So we know that time is of the essence in that we will be meeting again on November 2nd. Likely there'll be a committee meeting next week to where we may be able to hear out some of these cuts as well as increases.
And
Mr. President, I yield to the other person.
Attorney Colvin.
I just wanted to point out that when you mention parity, it's important to remember that that's the fire department too, not just the retirees. So I wanted to bring that point up as well.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Mr. President, I didn't
Councilman Lay.
hear a figure, a percentage. Are we talking about 1%, 15%, like we do with the CBA? What's the percentage that's being asked for? I don't see how your financial person can work on anything without some number.
It's 3%, which comes to about $230 some odd thousand for on the police side. We would then have to consider for firefighters. I think it would be that initial rank where the parity would come into play, and then of course the retiree portion which you mentioned. So I think, if I'm correct, am I correct, Mr. Wolf?
And fringe benefits.
And fringe benefits, which I think these are all exist for existing employees. And then for new hires, they would be at 45,000 in their first year probationary period. Mr. Wolf, am I correct?
Yes, the proposal was 3%, and to kind of put a little light on the expense aspect of it, we also proposed with that 3% that a probationary officer that comes into the police department who currently makes exactly what a patrolman, if he's a patrolman for 15 years, makes. We proposed that we cut that by over $5,700 in their probationary year. So we would only pay an entry-level officer going from the day he's hired to his 1-year anniversary to $45,000. Now, of course, that's not going to fund the raises in completion, but the point of that was to try to save the city some money on that end of it to help out with the other end. As far as parity goes, it's my understanding. I heard somebody, I believe it was Ms. Colvin, said parity with fringe benefits. Now, from my understanding, parity is only to salaries. So things like uniform allowance that we propose and things of that nature, I don't believe that parity falls, that's within them guidelines. I believe parity is only about salaries, because if that was the case, we would have the same benefits across the board, which we don't have with the fire department. That's clear. And when you talk about other salaries with the way the fire department's schedules are and things of that nature, I think our salary with rank, I think that differs too, so, somewhere, if I'm not mistaken. So ultimately, Mr. Lay, the answer.
I'm sorry.
Attorney Colvin?
I didn't want to cut off Sergeant Wolf. I didn't know if
No, I was just finishing up to Councilman Lay's question. The number was 3%.
Yeah, but Mr. President, you seem to be not giving us all of the facts. Are you asking for some kind of uniform money also, other benefits?
That was also part of the. There's 4 items in the proposal total. 3% raise, the uniform allowance, which has been cut several times over the last 15 years, but yet uniform costs have doubled in the last 15 years. So we're asking that our uniform allowance be restored to what it was, which is twice of what it is.
What is that? Be a little bit more specific.
It's currently $500 a year, $250 twice a year, and we're asking for that to be doubled to $1,000 per year. And the reason being is the cost of these uniforms. We had a call at the Menards the other night where we had a mentally disturbed subject that opened up a bucket of paint and started slinging it everywhere. Well, that's a ruined uniform. You get that on, so one of these uniforms is $240 when you outfit it completely with patches and name tags and all them things. So the cost of that, you take out one uniform in a year, your uniform check is gone already, just with one uniform, not to mention holsters and flashlights and things that you might break during the course of the year, and work boots that you go through, rain jackets that you need, and winter coats that you need, all these things. So although it sounds like a shocking number of, oh, double that, in reality, what each officer actually spends per year in equipment and uniforms is astronomical. I average probably about $2,500 a year I spend in equipment that I need for my job yearly. And I'm a detective. I'm not even on the street every single day. So I can imagine what some of these guys pay out yearly. So that was item number 2. And the other 2 items were not monetary items. They were items that have to do with departmental things like vacation time and stuff.
That would be monetary. Please explain. That's and you seem to be asking for, I'm not sure your explanation is quite long. You have 157 officers. So if you added, are you adding $500 per officer or $1,000 per officer?
You're adding 500 for a total of 1,000.
Okay.
So that total number.
Currently, let me sort of ask the question, because your explanation, I get lost in the long explanation. So currently they get 500. So you're now asking for an additional 500, which would be about $70-some thousand. Is that correct? In addition to the 3%.
It would be $78,000. That's correct.
Okay. Now, these other 2 items you said do not cost money, but what are they? What are these other 2?
So the other item, one other item was, as all other departments around are paying their officers hazard pay and things of that nature for this COVID thing, all their first responders are getting money for these. Being that we know what the financial constraints are with the city, we propose that they award each officer for just the year 2021 1 additional week vacation.
Well, that would cost, that's money. That's where you're being paid and you're not. And again, I'm not complaining about it, but that is money that's costing the city for that 1 week. I would assume for 157 officers, that 1 week, we certainly have to pay for it. One other thing, I think I heard you said you're going to reduce the incoming officers' pay by $5,700. Is that true?
Only entry level.
Right, but that means you're contradicting what you indicate the problem is, that you can't get officers. So now you're going to reduce that pay, and I think it would put you behind not only East Chicago, but everyone else in terms of trying to compete to get these individuals, wouldn't it?
Well, we're one of few departments that actually pay entry-level officers the same dollar amount that they work at until they get rank. So other departments do the same thing. They lower their entry level the same way. The difference with us is we're talking about, these guys know that if they make it through the academy, they make it through their field training, and they hit their probation year, that they're getting almost a $6,000 raise. That's a plus for anybody that's coming in, knowing that they're going to be put up to that. It's just that you have so many instances where you may have an officer that washes out in the academy. He may, within his first year, decide to go to another department, things of that nature. But we're not the only department that does that. There's a lot of departments that pay their entry level a lot less than their first class patrolman.
Yeah, and in all due respect, and again, I appreciate you answering my question. I'm not as concerned with what other departments are doing at this stage of what I'm asking. But wouldn't that cause you to be less competitive with new officers if you reduce their pay by $5,700?
I don't believe so, just for the fact that they're going to get it. They just have to make it through that first year.
Okay, thank you.
I think if they walk in the door knowing that they got to work until they make rank to get a raise, that's the turnoff.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Councilman Lay and President Wolf. Hopefully, I'm presuming that we will have our Finance Committee meeting next Tuesday. We'll be able to maybe even consider an amendment if necessary to discuss this further and in greater detail. All right. Any other members for special and select? Seeing and hearing none. Council pending ordinances and resolutions on third and final reading.
CPO 2020-50, in order to appropriating monies for the purpose of deferring expenses of general parks, Coit, seated CCI, CCD, MVH, LRS, fire pension, and police pension tax-based funds of the city of Gary, Indiana, for the fiscal year beginning January the 1st, 2021, ending December 31st, 2021, including all outstanding claims and obligations, and fixing any time and same to take effect. Sponsored by Mayor Jerome Prince, City of Gary, Arlene Coleman, City Controller.
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Brown,
I move that CPO 2020-50 be moved back to committee.
Second.
been moved and properly seconded by Councilwoman Barnes Caldwell. Any questions or discussion?
Mr. President.
We are going to have a public hearing,
Oh, okay.
but we're still going
I
to.
know, right.
Can
move
you
it back to
do
committee.
the public hearing before you do the?
I think that's right. All
Okay.
right, so Councilwoman Brown, we'll suspend that motion for now.
Okay,
And at
we'll
this
have the
time,
public hearing.
right,
Okay, CPO 2020-50. So I move for public hearing on CPO 2020-50.
Second.
been moved and properly seconded. Any questions or discussion? Roll call, Madam Clerk. We don't take it. We don't take, okay, we're moving. So therefore, is there any member of the public who would like to speak on CPO 2020-50? And I'm going to rely on our media team here because I can't see anybody who's not a panelist. So if you are watching in Zoom land, you would need to raise your hand or perhaps if available, enter a message into the chat box. And so media team, do you have anyone who has raised their hand, who's a member of the public, who would like to speak on CPO 2020-50? Okay, I would just remind the public, obviously this is not our traditional way of doing things. We would typically all be here in the chamber. But if you have questions or comments, please feel free to call the council office at 219-881-1315 to submit your questions or comments. I will now entertain members who may have, would like to speak on CPO 2020-50. Any members have any comments or thoughts on CPO 2020-50? Councilwoman Atkins?
Sure. I just had a couple of thoughts. You know, I did take the time. I know this is probably like our, I don't know, third week possibly reviewing it. But as a new council member, I wanted to make sure that I understood exactly what I am voting for. And again, I feel like I have to give a disclaimer so that people can understand the reasoning behind being analytical and taking the time and doing a deep dive. It's because our city is in financial disarray. And this is the most opportunity that we have as council members to help our city. And so with my background in finance and in business, I wanted to make sure that I was doing my due diligence. And so there was a couple of things that have came up that I hope if, you know, at the request of the chair for the finance committee that we can review if you do decide to take it back, that I, you know, came across that we should discuss. A lot of it is related to professional services. And also, I know that's 50, right, or 51? 50. So 50 is, make sure, it's salary, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Right.
So I think my notes that I had in terms of the salary was just making sure that we understand some of those increases. We should be working towards cost savings and cost avoidance strategies and making sure. So 50 is operating budget? Okay, so same thing, just making sure that we have those type of strategies. I know Councilman Weatherspoon and I had kind of talked about ensuring when it was that time that we had lean processes in place. And so, for example, one thing that I caught was, and it could be justification for it, but there was $100,000 increase in gasoline under one of the funds, which will take, you know, that proposed 2021 budget to $475,000, which is almost $500,000 in gasoline. So is that justified? Is that accurate? Is that truly needed? And what was the proposed 2020 spend for that? And that is under 221, 231 under general services, for an example. And so I had noted a couple of things like that that I just want to make sure that we understand, and if we could get some information if we needed to decrease that, because it's increase of about 38%, I believe, we should do so. So just so people can understand the reasoning behind, what I'm looking at and what I hope to get out of one last meeting, since I did take the time to go through those budgets thoroughly. And I also had a question too. I remember prior to joining the council, there was a lot of discussion about Fund 224, which I think was like the ambulatory fund. And I'm not sure if that should be included into 50, but I didn't see that in our packet. So Ms. Colvin, should that have been included in here or no?
No, that's a part of the ordinances that come to the council
After?
in November
Yes,
for
ma'am.
special revenues
Yes,
and
ma'am.
grants.
Okay. Thank you.
I think just following up on Councilman Atkins, I know the law department has an increase in their professional services, the health department, and there are others. And I think as we perhaps might entertain raises for police officers, if that's the pleasure of the body, obviously those dollars will have to come from somewhere. And so there might have to be some cuts to some of the professional services line items in other places, but I think that's a good start. And we look forward to talking about that further in the committee meeting.
Mr. President,
Councilman Lay?
I understand quite a few people, including the council, is getting raises, the clerk, the judge, and the council itself. That would appear to me to be a place to start.
Absolutely. I think all the raises are on the table. I
Well,
agree.
may I conclude, or you're going?
I'm sorry. Please
Yeah,
proceed.
that's okay. That's why I don't say too much for the council any longer. We'll even say less. I would think that would be a place to start. I certainly don't think the council itself, or me, for instance, and I do quite a bit of what I call grunt work in terms of looking at things. At this point, needs to get a raise when we're in this pandemic, because of course the city is hurting, and certainly we got three things coming before us. One is the referendum. What I absolutely know is going to be the case: the raise of the fees in the sanitary district, the raise of I guess monies for NIPSCO. And certainly, since we're going to be indoors, we're going to consume a lot more gas. So I would say this may not be the year to give anyone a raise. And again, I'm not saying we shouldn't look at the police and firemen, but certainly I don't think the elected officials should receive a raise. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilman Lay. And I certainly I support the spirit of what you're saying. And I think we bring it all the way down to professional services as well. So I'm cut. I'm all with you.
Yeah, I'm talking about elected officials. I know that seems to be confused. I'm talking about 9 people.
Right.
I assume the mayor, 9 plus 2, 11. If the mayor has asked for a raise, he shouldn't get it either.
Right. I don't think he has, but I can say I agree with you. I think there's going to be a lot of heavy lifting, and I certainly agree with the elected official piece. And I will add on to that that professional services will be an area to look at very closely. Any other?
I didn't mention, Mr. Chair, about salary because I thought that was under 51, next one, but it's true, just from a percentage standpoint, we had salary proposed increases from 2% all the way up to 30-something%. So we should also look at those in addition to elected officials as well, especially on the higher end, closer to that 30% increase proposed.
Absolutely. That's the fiscally responsible thing to do. Any other members for comments on 2020-50? Okay, I think at this time we can now entertain our motion. Councilwoman Brown.
Mr. President, I agree that CPO 2050-51, that there should not be raises for elected officials if in fact we are in the process of attempting to look at this budget and see where we can cut. I don't have a problem with that. But this was not the salary budget. We were talking about 50, which is the operating budget. So 2051 is the salary budget. So I'm okay with going back and saying, hey, maybe we should look at the salary budgets as well. So I guess my motion would be that, oh, we didn't vote on 2050 yet, do we?
No, let's just restate it for the record.
Okay, my motion is that CPO 2020-50 be, we're not going to move it back to committee right now, so
We
we're
do
just
want to, I
going,
think.
right, we're just having a public hearing.
But we can still refer it back to committee.
So, Mr. President, had you closed public
Okay,
comment?
Public portion is already in.
Okay.
We have moved the members.
Okay.
okay. Well, then we'll, CPO 2020-50, my motion is that we move it back to committee and have some more discussion.
Second.
Been moved and properly seconded by Councilman Barnes Caldwell. Any questions or discussion? Seeing and hearing none, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Atkins,
Yes.
Councilman Brewer,
Yes.
Councilwoman Brown,
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell,
Yes.
Councilman Lay,
Yes.
Councilman Weatherspoon,
Yes.
Councilman Williams,
Yes.
and President Godwin.
Yes.
Mr. President, vote is 8-0.
With a vote of 8-0, the CPO 2020-50 is moved back to the Finance Committee. I think that the meeting date will probably be October 27th at 5:30 p.m.
Is that going to give us the time that we need to do what we need to do? October 27th.
We can make
to
it.
ask Arlene Colvin if is that going to give us the time that we need in order to get this budget passed? If we go back and have a committee meeting on the 27th of October.
Councilwoman, as long as the budget is passed on November 2nd,
Okay,
that's what needs to happen. So it just depends upon what the council does.
okay. All right, then
Okay.
we can have it on the 27th. I'm okay with that.
Thank you, Councilman Brown. Of course, that will be appropriately distributed to the public and media in terms of the time and date for that meeting, October 27th at 5:30 p.m.
Okay.
All right. Please proceed, Madam Clerk.
CPO 2020-51, an ordinance approving salaries for the employees of the City of Gary's General Parks, Quay, MVH, pension, and fire tax-based funds for the calendar year 2021, sponsored by Mayor Jerome Prince, City of Gary, Arlene Colvin, City Controller.
Mr. President,
Councilman Brown.
I move the CPO 2020-51 be moved, well, a public hearing. And yeah, for the public hearing, I'm sorry, I move for the public hearing.
Second.
Been moved and properly seconded by Councilman Barnes Caldwell. I will turn again to our media team to see if anyone in Zoom world has indicated a desire to speak via the chat or by raising their hand on CPO 2020-51, the salary ordinance. They've indicated to me that no one has asked to speak on it. So at this point, we will close the public hearing portion for CPO 2020-51. Of course, any members would like to entertain any comments, questions on CPO 2020-51.
President.
Councilman Brewer is recognized, and then Councilwoman Brown.
Yes, I know the discussion have started coming up about looking at ways where we can save money and not giving out raises. I will be one, definitely will vote no for the increase in council members getting a raise going forward. I want to definitely push hard for our public safety inside our community, and we are basically in a pandemic of safety in this city, not so much of the pandemic itself, but we have a pandemic of safety inside this community here, where we're looking at the homicide rate that's way out of control, and also the shootings. We get a number already that's based on 2019, 2018 numbers, but that number was already out of range then. But we look probably say 7 to 10 years behind that, where our numbers are way out of whack where they should be. So I would definitely be voting no for raises at this time.
Well, Councilman Brewer, I think that the discussion was we were going to take this back to committee, and then we will discuss, not giving raises to the council or perhaps anybody.
Right.
We'll have that discussion when we have the committee meeting.
Yes.
But I agree with you, but we need to have the committee meeting.
Okay.
Okay, on the 27th. So we can discuss all of the raises.
Okay. Thank you.
And Mr. Chair, just as it relates to 51 as well, even to the chair of the Finance Committee, Councilwoman Brown, I think that we also need to look at the fire budget as well. There were some changes, in place related to the division chief, change to operation chief. And as we talk about public safety within the city, ensuring that we have the appropriate coverage at all of the houses across the city is very important. And so understanding, the particular suppression roles and where they should be fit, and if we will have enough coverage for that as it is projected within the 2020 salary budget, I think is important as well. So I'll be sure to bring up those concerns during the committee meeting as
Okay,
well.
make sure you bring those points when we have our committee meeting.
Yes, ma'am.
So, okay. So that my motion will be that we move this back to committee, CPO 2020-51, for a committee meeting on Tuesday, October 27th at 5 o'clock? Start at 5 o'clock instead of 6.
Second.
Is 5 good or not
We're
good?
gonna do 5:30. I got a couple of things I want to be.
5:30.
Yes.
Okay, 5:30.
It's been moved and properly seconded by Councilman Barnes Caldwell. Any questions or discussion? Seeing and hearing none, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Atkins,
Yes.
Councilman Brewer,
Yes.
Councilwoman Brown,
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell,
Yes.
Councilman Lay,
Yes.
Councilman Weatherspoon,
Yes.
Councilman Williams,
Yes.
and President Godwin.
Yes.
Mr. President, vote is 8-0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. With a vote of 8-0, CPO 2020-51 is deferred back to the Finance Committee with a committee meeting on Tuesday, October 27th, 2020 at 5:30 p.m. in the council chamber as well as via Zoom. So it will be a hybrid meeting.
CPO 2020-53, an ordinance appropriating monies for the purpose of defraying expenses of the Gary Chicago International Airport tax-based funds of the city of Gary, Indiana for the fiscal year beginning January 1st, 2021, ending December 31st, 2021, including all outstanding claims and obligations, and fixing the time the same shall take effect. Sponsored by Mayor Jerome Prince, City of Gary.
Mr. President.
Councilwoman Brown.
I move for passage of CPO 2020-53 on third and final reading. We had this ordinance on last meeting.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded by Councilwoman Barnes Caldwell. Any questions or discussion? Seeing and hearing none, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Atkins,
Yes.
Councilman Brewer,
Yes.
Councilwoman Brown,
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell,
Yes.
Councilman Lay,
Yes.
Councilman Weatherspoon,
Yes.
Councilman Williams,
Yes.
and President Godwin.
Yes.
Mr. President, vote is 8-0.
With a vote of 8-0, CPO 2020-53 passes and is so ordered.
CPO 2020-54, an ordinance appropriating monies for the purpose of defraying expenses of the Gary Public Transportation Corporation of the City of Gary, Indiana for the fiscal year beginning January 1st, 2021, and ending December 31st, 2021, including all outstanding claims and obligations and fixing a time and essential take effect. Sponsored by Mayor Jerome Prince, City of Gary.
Mr.
Council-
President,
Councilman Brown is recognized.
I move the CPO 2020-54 be passed on third and final reading. We had the public hearing last 2 weeks ago.
Did I hear a second, Councilman Barnes Caldwell?
Yes, you did.
Thank you. It's been moved and properly seconded. Any questions or discussion? Seeing and hearing none, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Atkins,
Yes.
Councilman Brewer,
Yes.
Councilwoman Brown,
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell,
Yes.
Councilman Lay,
Yes.
Councilman Weatherspoon,
Yes.
Councilman Williams,
Yes.
and President Godwin.
Yes.
Mr. President, the vote is 8-0.
With a vote of 8-0, CPO 2020-54 passes and is so ordered.
CPO 2020-57, an ordinance authorizing transfer of funds within 101 General Fund for the Gary Common Council, sponsored by the Gary Common Council.
President,
Councilman Brown,
I move for passage of CPO 2020-57 on third and final reading.
Second.
been moved and properly seconded by Councilwoman Barnes Caldwell. Any questions or
Mr. President, I move that CPO 2020-57 be amended by substitution.
Second.
Been moved and properly seconded. Any questions or discussion?
Well, I'd like to know what the substitution is. We can't vote on it without
The
knowing.
substitution is simply that all of the names of the council people were named, were listed,
Except for.
Mr. Lay.
Right.
except for you, Council.
Okay, I can't tell. That's fine. That's fine.
Right. So that's all it is.
So the staff is still preparing this ordinance, is that correct?
Stephen Jenkins.
The Attorney Jenkins
Right.
prepared it.
Well, that would have to be in the substitution. It wasn't in the original. It's in the substitution that way?
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
All right. Any other questions and discussion related to the amendment by substitution? Seeing and hearing none, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Atkins,
Yes.
Councilman Brewer,
Yes.
Councilwoman Brown,
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell,
Yes.
Councilman Lay,
No,
Councilman Weatherspoon, Councilman Weatherspoon,
Yes.
Councilman Williams,
Yes.
and President Godwin.
Yes.
Mr. President, the vote is 7 yes, 1 no.
With 7 yes votes and 1 no vote, CPO 2020-57 is amended by substitution. Is there a motion now to pass CPO
Mr. President,
2020-57
I
as
move for
amended?
passage of CPO 2020-57 on third and final
As
reading.
amended by substitution.
Second.
As amended.
Is there, Councilman Lay?
yeah, I have to apologize to the council. I have no objection to, so my vote, you can change it. I have no objection to the substitution. I was thinking this was the actual ordinance itself as substituted. So you can show my vote as yes to the substitution.
Thank you, Councilman Lay. Deputy Clerk, did you get that?
Yes, the vote is 8-0.
Thank you. Was there a second, Councilman Barnes Caldwell?
Yes.
All
Second.
right, it's been moved and properly seconded to pass CPO 2020-57 as amended by substitution. Any questions or discussion? Seeing and hearing none, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Atkins,
Yes.
Councilman Brewer,
Yes.
Councilwoman Brown,
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell,
Yes.
Councilman Lay,
No,
Councilman Weatherspoon,
Yes.
Councilman Williams,
Yes.
and President Godwin.
Yes.
Mr. President, the vote is 7-1.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. With a vote of 7-1, CPO 2020-57 as amended passes and is so ordered.
CPO 2020-58, An ordinance amending Title 15 entitled Land Usage, Chapter 123 titled Zoning Code of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Gary, Indiana. Petition of Brian and Janet Doman, 4350 West Ridge Road, Gary, Indiana. Property at 3314 West Ridge Road, Gary, Indiana.
Councilman Brewer,
Mr. President, I move for passage on CPO 2020-58 on third and final.
Second.
been moved and properly seconded by Councilman Barnes Caldwell. We'll have the overview at this time. I think Mr. Berea is on.
Yes, I think the Brian Doman is also on, if the petitioner wants to defend his own petition.
Can we have an overview at this time?
Okay, I will go ahead and give the overview.
Thank you.
BZA 2020, 3314 West Ridge Road. The petition consists of 7 components asking for a variance from development standards. 1A is to allow a motor freight facility on a parcel with less than 200-foot frontage. They have 50 foot on Ridge Road and 109 foot and change on Chase. 1B is to reduce the separate ingress and egress requirements from the municipal code with minimum distance of 100 feet to 1 ingress and egress. 1C is the request to reduce the 15-foot vegetative buffer on all sides to a setback of 0 feet on the east side of the flag portion. If you have in your packet the unusual geometry of this is the east portion. 1D is to reduce the 15-foot vegetative buffer on all sides to a setback of 5 feet on the east side non-flag portion. 1E is to reduce the 15-foot vegetative buffer on all sides to a setback of 10 feet on the south boundary. 1F is requested relief from the required performance bond due to no construction other than curb cuts anticipated at this time. And 1G is to allow surface material of milled asphalt shavings. They responded to the findings of fact by providing a vegetative buffer zone along all sides of the property other than the frontage to provide a sound and visual barrier from neighboring parcels. No motor, they had 4 letters came back, 2 not opposed, but listing a concern about the permeability of the surface material, and 2 that were opposed, 1 including comments about concerning that the rain seeping through the milled asphalt could contaminate well water, and to keep noise down between 6 p.m. and 6 a.m., and to make sure that there's some form of buffer to reduce noise, traffic, dust, and the visual eyesore. The staff recommendation is that this petition to deviate from development standards has the potential to add tax revenue to the city. That concludes the staff overview.
Hello, this is John Talbot. I represent Brian and Jeanette Doman and am willing to answer any questions any members of the council may have.
Thank you, Mr. Talbot. Any members have questions for the petitioner or Mr. Talbot or our own zoning administrator, Mr. Berea?
I would just like to ask, what is a vegetative buffer? What does that consist of?
Generally speaking, it would be bushes or some form of vegetation that is going to create a modest site barrier to the site.
So no type of special trees or anything like that, just
No,
grass and,
nothing specific is required.
okay. That's it for me, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilman Brewer. Councilwoman Atkins?
This was for a truck and I think it was truck and trailer storage business. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Is the business currently operating?
No, the property is up for lease. We do have a pending lease, but it is not approved until subject to zoning approval.
And the surrounding area was residential, is that correct?
No, most of Ridge Road is commercial. However, to our immediate west is a mobile home park. And so on our western property line, we have agreed to construct a very significant earthen berm that will then have a vegetative buffer on top of it.
What's the
So
earthen
to
berm?
totally block sight and sound to the mobile home park.
Okay, got it. Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing and hearing none, at this point we will have the roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Atkins,
Abstain.
Councilman Brewer,
Yes.
Councilwoman Brown,
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell,
No.
Councilman Lay,
Yes.
Councilman Weatherspoon,
Yes.
Councilman Williams,
Yes.
President Gowdy.
Yes.
Mr. President, the vote is 6 yes, 1 no, and 1 abstention.
With 6 yes votes, CPO 2020-58 passes and is so ordered.
CPO 2020-59, an ordinance amending Title 15 entitled Land Usage, Chapter 123 entitled Zoning Code of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Gary, Indiana. Petitioner Holly Jones and Mark Mueller, 402 Pearl Street, Michigan City, Indiana. Property at 8618 Pine Avenue, Gary, Indiana.
Councilman Brewer is recognized.
Mr. President, I'd like to move for passage of CPO 2020-59 on third and final.
Second?
Been moved and properly seconded by Councilman Barnes Caldwell. The overview at this time.
'28 2618 Pine Avenue is requesting a development standards variance to reduce the front setback requirement of 25 feet or 20% of lot depth to 5 feet to move the proposed building to the front portion of the lot. The property is zoned R2. In this particular petition, the diagrams included in your packet are very enlightening because it makes sense that the building footprint is simply being moved to the front portion of the lot to be on the high portion of the ridge, equivalent to the neighboring properties. There were 55 mailings sent, 2 opposed, 3 not opposed. During the previous BZA and Plan Council meetings, the concerns from the neighbors were largely of not understanding that it was 5 feet from the property boundary, not from the road. And the staff recommendation is that this could contribute to property taxes and potentially contribute to real estate values in the area. That concludes the staff overview.
Thank you, Mr. Berea. I don't know if the petitioner, I see she's on, Ms. Jones, if you wanted to add anything or.
Nope, Eric covered it, thanks. I've been on the whole time, it just switched off which device, so thanks. Any questions? I'm here.
Thank you. I just want to say that obviously I am in real estate. I have not been involved with this transaction or this property in any way. And so I do intend to vote in the affirmative on it. Just wanted to be extra clear that there is no conflict of interest as it relates to my voting on this matter.
Okay.
Any questions or discussions from council members? Seeing and hearing none, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Atkins,
Yes.
Councilman Brewer,
Yes.
Councilwoman Brown,
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell,
Yes.
Councilman Lay,
Yes.
Councilman Weatherspoon,
Yes.
Councilman Williams,
Yes.
and President Godwin.
Yes.
Mr. President, the vote is 8-0.
With a vote of 8-0, CPO 2020-59 passes and is so ordered.
Thank you.
Welcome.
CPO 2020-60, an ordinance amending Title 15 entitled Land Usage, Chapter 123 entitled Zoning Code of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Gary, Indiana. Petitioner Anna Martinez, 6101 East 6th Place, Gary, Indiana. Property at 6101 East 6th Place, Gary, Indiana.
Councilman Brewer is recognized.
Mr. President, I move for passage of CPO 2020-60 on third and final.
Been moved and properly seconded by Councilwoman Barnes Caldwell. We'll have our overview at this time, and I do see that not only is Mr. Berea on, but the kombucha extraordinaire, Ms. Anna Martinez, is also on. Mr. Berea?
The petition for 6101 East 6th Place is a use variance. You see in your packet that the property in question is right off of Lake Street. So the petitioner requested a use variance with Municipal Code Section 12359 to produce kombucha on a residential property. The 36 mailings were sent to neighbors, 0 returned opposed, 5 came back not opposed. The staff recommendation is that the staff highly recommends this proposal. The proposed business aligns with the future development plans for the area and would contribute to tax revenue for the city. That concludes the staff overview.
Thank you, Mr. Berea. Ms. Martinez, would you like to add anything?
No, I think that covers it. I just appreciate all the support I've gotten so far.
Thank you. And I will just echo everything that Mr. Berea has said. Obviously, I'm the councilperson for the district wherein the property is located. I personally know Ms. Martinez. I have seen her start her business, which used to be next door to my office, and expand to a new space. As people know, I often travel throughout the region. I've been in Crown Point at places and seen, Anna's Kombucha, Miller Beach, Gary, Indiana. And so throughout the Chicagoland region, this local Gary-based business has just done amazing work. She's committed to the community. We know that 6th Place, which many people have gotten to see because of the detour, as Lake Street finally has done, but as Lake Street has been under construction, is starting to see a bubble of entrepreneurial activity. In fact, an artist has also taken basically an abandoned house and bought it from redevelopment and created a whole art center and community garden space, which is absolutely beautiful. So what Ms. Martinez is doing is only adding to the economic development that will spur tremendous growth on Lake Street. So I salute her as a business owner, especially in these times, and certainly look forward to voting in the affirmative.
Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome. Any other questions or discussions from council members?
Mr. President,
Councilman Brewer?
I just want to reinstate my full support of this ordinance here on tonight. Ms. Martinez has been excellent for our city as a business owner, and she has really stuck it out through the rougher times before the pandemic even hit. She was dealing with a pandemic with the construction that was happening on Lake Street, and she endured at least 3 years of heavy detours away from her business, but she survived and she's still with us, hanging in there with us. I would just implore everyone as we can patronize her as much as possible. Tell a neighbor, tell a friend. I think that's the least that we can do, is to patronize her and just show our support for her sticking it out and hanging in here as the city went through the transformation of Lake Street. I appreciate you. I look forward to casting this yes vote.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Councilman Brewer. Any other members for questions or discussion? Seeing and hearing none, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Atkins,
Yes.
Councilman Brewer,
Yes.
Councilwoman Brown,
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell,
Yes.
Councilman Lay,
Yes.
Councilman Weatherspoon,
Yes.
Councilman Williams,
Yes.
President Godwin.
Yes.
Mr. President, the vote is 8-0.
With a vote of 8-0, CPO 2020-60 passes and is so ordered.
Thank you.
2020-61, an ordinance amending Title 15 entitled Land Usage, Chapter 123 entitled Zoning Code of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Gary, Indiana. Petitioners Eugenia German, 372 Arthur Street, Gary, Indiana. Property at 372 Arthur Street.
Councilman Brewer is recognized.
President, I move for passage of CPO 2020-61 on third and final.
Second.
Moved and properly seconded by Councilman Barnes Caldwell. We'll have our overview at this time, Mr. Berea.
For the next four petitions, I sent a map, an updated daycare map with the addresses highlighted. So if you have that in your packet, it would be useful to pull that up. The petition for 372 Arthur Street is a special use petition to start a daycare at that location. The owner petitioner is Eugenia German. She requested to open a daycare. Mailings were sent. 3 were opposed, citing concerns of traffic congestion, limited parking, potential unsafe conditions due to parking. 3 came back not opposed. Looking at the map, there is another daycare in the immediate area, but we still believe that this property can still provide a service for residents and contribute to tax revenue to the city. That concludes the staff overview portion.
Any of the petitioner like to speak? I think Ms. German is on.
Yes. Yes, I want to say safety is my first priority. Right now, I'm currently babysitting 4 of my grandkids, a 6-year-old, a 5-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a 7-month-old. And 2 of the children are in e-learning, a 1st grader in kindergarten. Hello? Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any questions
Thank you.
for Ms. German or Mr. Berea? Councilman Witherspoon?
Thank you, please. Mr. Berea, you and I had conversation about this probably about 3-4 weeks ago. I assume that you had sent out some letters and they went out too late. Am I correct in that?
So the 7 petitioners, 7 out of the petitioners that are being reviewed tonight, they went before the BZA in August. The letters did not go out in time. So all of them resent out the letters, redid the entire process for the September BZA meeting. So the neighbors actually had 2 opportunities to respond. That is correct.
So you only got 3 back that were not in favor, am I correct? And I believe you mentioned to me there were like maybe 400 and something letters that went out?
For this particular property, were 93 mailings that were sent out.
Only 3 negative. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or discussion for Mr. Berea or the petitioner? Seeing and hearing none, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Mr. President, this is Steve
Attorney
Jenkins.
Jenkins.
This is Steve Jenkins with the Law Department. Would like to make one announcement. Pertains to 4 petitions that are before us tonight. They're all for daycares and their special use permits. I just wanted to make the announcement that during the BZA meeting, the petitions regarding special use were approved on condition, on a specific condition, that the special use would end once the business ends. That particular line is absent from the ordinances, which I would like to add, or if we could amend, and I can get that to you tomorrow, if that's fine. Just wanted to make that announcement so that the council was aware that that is the case.
Thank you, Attorney Jenkins, for that clarification. Councilman Brewer is recognized.
So you're saying that it was in when the business end. How would you know that would that work if they don't renew a business license within a
Eugene,
year?
quit calling me.
How would you know that when the
Call
business?
Eugene, tell him quit calling me.
Can you everyone mute the phone? You not want to speak?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, we hear you. Yes. Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Attorney Williams is recognized.
Yeah, I understand what Attorney Jenkins is stating, but under the existing ordinance, after 1 year that the business ceased to exist, the special use would terminate anyway under the ordinance as it's currently written.
Yeah.
Now
Yes,
that is they wanted. I mean, it is a difference. It's a slight difference. They're saying immediately upon the business ceasing to exist, and the current ordinance allows for 1 year, and then at that point it would revert back to the previous use.
Right.
So
that's
I'm
correct.
just wondering, how do we get to that point? You know, how do we know as council member? How does Mr. Jenkins know as working for the executive branch? How does he know when that business have stopped? Because there's a lot of daycares that we have came before the city that's not operating. If I give you one, we did one probably a year ago or 2 years ago on 25th and Taft. That daycare is no longer operating. And I just learned today, sadly, that the young lady that was running that business has passed away. So how will we know that that business is no longer operating?
Councilman, I think you're absolutely correct. The only possible way for the city to be able to tell at any given point would be the failure to renew a business license. That's going to be the only accurate way that we could presume that the business has ceased to exist. So at that point, if you fail to renew your business license, then at that point, the determination is then that that business is no longer existing as a daycare.
Thank you, Attorney Pohl. Any other comments related to Attorney Jenkins' interjection as relates to these ordinances before us related to daycares? Are we, in fact, do we think it's unnecessary, Attorney Williams, to entertain an amendment if the relevant ordinance already covers it? Or do we think we need to include this language?
Well, my position is it would also be duplicitous because if it terminates immediately and someone comes back within 6 months, you have to go through this entire process again. That's why the mindset was to allow it to exist for a year. And at that point, then the person would come back. So for both reasons, I think the current ordinance as written protects the city from what they're attempting to do without the amendment.
Thank you, Attorney Williams. Unless a member has a different opinion, I'll just defer to the committee chair, Councilman Brewer.
Well, only thing I would add, I would just echo Attorney Williams. If that's the case, I will move forward with the amendment. If the business license is not renewed within 1 year, it's automatically terminated. So that way it's clear.
Huh?
What's that?
I think Attorney Williams is saying we don't necessarily need an amendment. Is that correct?
Yes, my position is unless 1 year is that important, then by all means you can do it. But what will happen in reality, you'll get flooded with these requests because these resolving businesses, they come and go as far as daycares. And if you terminate it immediately and they desire to open back up or a new person open up within that year, it would trigger another proceeding coming to the council and going through this process, whereas the current ordinance would allow it to maintain for a year, and at that point it would terminate. So it's, of course, the pleasure of the council. If that 1 year is that important, then by all means. If not, I think you have the protection under the current ordinance.
Mr. President.
Councilman Lay.
Why don't we just accept Attorney Williams' recommendation and go forward?
I agree.
Yeah,
I
we're
agree.
circling the wagon here.
Right. Councilman Brewer.
fine with that.
Okay, so unless someone's going to make a motion, I suggest we proceed unless there's any other questions or discussion on this ordinance.
I guess just as a matter of procedure, and as a point of clarification, it wasn't the city's amendment to the recommendation. It was the BZA's recommendation coming out, their recommendation out of the BZA. There was a contingency. It was a approval contingent upon this new regulation, which would automatically cease to exist. So I guess in a very odd way, the amendment or the ordinance proposed before the council today is actually incorrect as it is opposed. So I guess moving forward, the council would essentially be amending what has been approved, but they don't necessarily have to change the actual ordinance that's being presented. Just for clarification.
Mr. Chair, that's correct, but it's absolutely permissible. The zoning board, planning board, they simply make recommendations to the council. You have the absolute authority to deviate in any manner in which you choose. So it's not that big of an issue. You have the right to do it, and it does not usurp the authority of any of the other respected commission. They're simply recommendations to this body.
I completely concur with Attorney Williams.
All right, thank you, everyone. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Atkins,
Yes.
Councilman Brewer,
Yes.
Councilwoman Brown,
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell,
Yes.
Councilman Lay,
Yes.
Councilman Weatherspoon,
Yes.
Councilman Williams,
Yes.
and President Godwin.
Yes.
Mr. President, the vote is 8-0.
With a vote of 8-0, CPO 2020-61 passes and is so ordered.
Okay, thank you all so much.
You're welcome.
CPO 2020-62, an ordinance amending Title 15 entitled Land Uses, Chapter 123 entitled Zoning Code of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Gary, Indiana. Petitioner Mary Hubbard Bobo, 7734 Ida Avenue, Hobart, Indiana, property at 3978 Martin Luther King Drive, Gary, Indiana.
Councilman Brewer.
I would ask because a letter that was presented, I believe today, for this ordinance here, that we that committee where we can have further discussion. And I have got some recommendations from several colleagues also that we can have more discussion on this one here. CPO 2020-62. So my motion is to move this back to committee October the 27th at 5 p.m.
Second.
Been moved and properly seconded by council members Weatherspoon and Barnes Caldwell. Any questions or discussion from members? Seeing and hearing none, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Atkins,
Yes.
Councilman Brewer,
Yes.
Councilwoman Brown,
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell,
Yes.
Councilman Lay,
No.
Councilman Weatherspoon,
Yes.
Councilman Williams,
Yes.
and President Godwin.
Yes.
This present vote is 7-1.
Mr. President.
Councilwoman Brown.
My vote is no as well on 2062.
Okay. So you get that, Madam Clerk?
Mr. President, the vote is 6 yes, 2 noes.
Okay.
Vote is no. Mhm.
All right. With 6 votes in the affirmative, CPO 2020-62 is deferred back to the Planning and Development Committee. The councilman has instructed me that the meeting will be on Tuesday, October 27th at 5:00 p.m.
CPO 2020-63, an ordinance amending Title 15 entitled Land Usage, Chapter 123 entitled Zoning Code of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Gary, Indiana. Petitioner Cheryl Moss Alexander, 3615 Carolina Street, property at 3615 Carolina Street, Gary.
Councilman Brewer is recognized.
Mr. President, I move for passage of CPO 2020-63 on third and final.
Second.
Moved and properly seconded by Councilwoman Barnes Caldwell. We'll have the overview at this time. Mr. Berea.
Petition at 3615 Carolina Street. The petitioner is Cheryl Moss Alexander. to establish a daycare at that location. There were 74 mailings that were sent. 3 came back opposed, mainly citing concerns about wanting to keep the area residential, parking, children, neighbor lawns, those kind of residential concerns. 5 came back not opposed. If you look at the map that the new map that I sent, there is a daycare in the immediate area, but in the general area, there is not a licensed daycare in the general area. So the staff recommendation is that the daycare would provide a service for residents and contribute to the tax revenue of the city. That concludes the staff recommendation portion, overview portion.
Thank you, Mr. Berea. With the petitioner, I believe Ms. Moss, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Yes, just to reiterate what Eric, Ms. Berea just stated, 3 did oppose, but 2, at the planning committee, I did bring it to their attention that 1 person voted twice. So it was similar to 2 people opposing to the special use petition. Regarding the daycare, it will be an evening daycare, evening, nights, and weekends. I am familiar with protecting the home with the security, of course, cameras, the doorbell, the ring. So I plan to have a safe and secure daycare home, and this would aid to the development of children. So that's what I would like to say.
Thank you, Ms. Moss and Mr. Berea. Any members have questions for the petitioner or Mr. Berea?
I want to make sure, Mr. President, want to make sure I'm clear. This is a 24-hour daycare, then, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Council.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Any other questions? Seeing and hearing none, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Atkins,
Yes.
Councilman Brewer,
Yes.
Councilwoman Brown,
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell,
Oh,
Councilman Lay,
Yes.
Councilman Weatherspoon,
Yes.
Councilman Williams,
Yes.
and President Godwin.
Yes.
Mr. President, vote is 7 yes, 1 no.
With 7 votes in the affirmative, CPO 2020-63 passes and is so ordered.
Thank you, Council.
You're welcome.
CPO 2020-64, an ordinance amending Title 15 entitled Land Usage, Chapter 123 entitled Zoning Code of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Gary, Indiana. Petitioner Kiera Jackson, 7534 Romel Drive, Weeki-Wachee, Florida. Property at 1954 Lane, Madison Lane, Gary, Indiana.
Mr. President.
Councilman Brewer.
Mr. President, CPO 2020-64 on third and final.
Been moved and properly seconded by Councilman Barnes Caldwell. We'll have the overview at this time, Mr. Berea.
Petition at 1954 Madison Lane is to establish a daycare on a residential property. The owner petitioner is Kiera Jackson. There were 67 mailings sent, 5 opposed. The concerns from being opposed were largely about parking, speed of cars down the street, the wanting to keep the area a residential neighborhood, and general residential concerns that were addressed in the plan council meeting. 2 were not opposed. If you look at the map I sent, it is in the middle, but in the general area, there are no immediate daycares in the immediate area. The staff recommends that this would provide a service for residents and contribute to the tax revenue of the city. That concludes the staff overview at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Berea. Petitioner, Ms. Jackson, I see you're on. Would you like to add anything?
I would just like to say thank you all for considering my petition. Also, when it comes to parking, I have a driveway. Also, everyone on my block has a garage and a driveway, so it wouldn't be any traffic that's built up for the daycare. I plan on providing transportation, so that will eliminate some of the people coming in and out of the home as far as parking in front of the house. And I think that's pretty much it.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. Any members have questions of Mr. Berea or Ms. Jackson? Councilwoman Brown is recognized.
Yeah, my question is, if she lives in Florida, how is she going to take care of this daycare? Who's going to operate this daycare in, in 19th and Madison Lane over in Means Manor? And I know that area. That's a nice area. It's been a nice area for many years. And so I'd just like to know how somebody who lives in Florida is going to take care of that.
Well, that's my landlord lives in Florida. I'm currently renting the property. So I do currently reside at 1954 Madison Lane.
Oh, you live, okay. That's your landlord.
Yes.
So I would ask as a follow-up, Mr. Berea, is it customary to list the petitioner's address as the landlord's personal residence, or should it be where the actual petitioner lives?
Petitioners need to show that they have the ownership of the land or permission from the owner to operate, to make the petition to operate the daycare on the property. And I think that's why the owner is listed there.
Because under petitioner, it says Kiera Jackson, and then it has the owner's address. So the owner's name is not in the ordinance. It would just seem proper to me that we would have the actual address for the petitioner, and I guess in our records we would have a letter or some notation from the owner authorizing this use of the leased premises.
Duly noted.
Does anyone from the law department have any reflections on that? This was prepared by Attorney Jenkins.
Yes, I prepared it. I can't recall if the owner gave permission. I can't recall. I know that's not in the packet. Eric, do you recall?
I don't, but I can find that information for you.
Okay.
Yes, I submitted the letter, the notarized letter from my landlord when I submitted in my application. So if you guys need me to email it or bring another copy, I do still have the original copy.
The actual petition should have a signature line for the owner to sign, stating that they give them the permission to operate at that location. Then the petitioners, or the petition should list the petitioner and her actual address. All of that should be actually in the application. I don't know if that's part of the packet or not.
We don't have, I mean, I don't have it. I just have 3 pages. So
Mr. Chair, if I can,
Councilwoman Atkins?
so we did request that in the committee meeting, and I thought it was going to be in the email that was sent to us. I think Attorney Jenkins sent this email to us, and it's not included in the packets either.
Right. I don't believe I have the petition for the application for either of them. I have the zoning maps with the ordinances. That's what I submitted by email. Zoning maps and the BZA's notes and findings of fact. That's what I submitted through the email. Okay.
How many letters did you say you sent out? How many letters were sent to the neighbors?
67.
And the responses were?
5 people opposed due to wanting to keep it residential, I'm assuming. I didn't read them, so I'm not sure. I know Mr. Boria read them.
Yeah, those are the 5 opposed and 2 not opposed.
Mr. Chair.
Councilwoman Atkins?
So first, Ms. Jackson, I do want to commend you. Anyone who has the entrepreneurial spirit, should be commended, especially within the pandemic that we're happening and within the city. We always want to support our small business owners. And I remember your story that you told us in terms of you needing to have some type of child care for your child. I did want to address, I think, a comment that Mr. Berea stated when he said that there were no other daycares in that area. I think that might be incorrect. I know unless this particular daycare has went out of business 2 blocks away at the Gary Neighborhood Services Center, there was an established daycare center that was, within walking distance from this location. As the council representative for that area, I did receive a lot of calls, a few calls, I'm not going to say a lot, and then some comments as well, right? In passing at stores for residents that are within the Means Manor neighborhood. That street as well, it is narrow, and I did go by to see the house, and there is a small driveway, which might be a concern if you're seeing transportation getting in and out of that. In terms of the makeup of that neighborhood, in terms of, for me, the comments that I received from those seniors, and again, I'm not sure if these are the same ones in the correspondence that you received, but I did get 7 calls about it and also 2 comments in passing at Walgreens. You know, they catch us anywhere they see us, opposed to this. So I would not be voting in support of it because of, you know, just wanting to make sure that I adhere to the majority of those comments that I received directly. And then also because of the close distance to that child care service. I do want to make sure that we don't have an abundance of those within the district.
Thank you, Councilman Atkins. Any other questions or discussion?
Mr. President,
Councilman Lay?
I will be voting in favor of it. In other words, they should have followed the process. I've received extended phone calls. They simply must make noted at the, I believe it's the Planning Commission, that they do not desire. But again, I will not hold that against Ms. Jackson. She followed the procedure. They failed to follow the procedure if they didn't send something back. As I understand, it's 5-2. And so I will be voting in her favor.
I will just follow up. You know, I'm a strong defender of private property rights and the ability to do pretty much anything you want to do on property that you own or that you are entitled to have use of. I am concerned about the paperwork related to the owner and whether or not the owner of the property has signed off on this. I don't think we have seen that, and that is an important thing for us to know. Is there a way in which attorneys Jenkins or Pohl or Mr. Berea can provide some affirmative statement that you did in fact receive that?
I'm sure this would have come up at the BZA meeting. I just don't have access to that petition in front of me. Second, I don't know if Eric has it. I don't believe it was in the original packet for the BZA meeting, though.
Mr. President.
Councilman Lay.
Ms. Jackson has indicated she has a notarized letter. I mean, that seems to me would be sufficient, has to be made, has to be given to the law department and or to the council. So we certainly could proceed and simply indicate that our approval is a precondition on us receiving the letter. I mean, she said she has it. If she does not, she certainly has jeopardized her daycare center.
Yes, I've submitted this. I applied originally in February. The person who was currently over it, I think he quit, Mr. Imran. I don't know what happened with him. So then it put the process on hold because they were trying to find someone to fill the position. So then I had to email it to Mr. Jenkins and another lady, the application over along with everything. And then altogether, they end up hiring Mr. Boria. So I've been through this process since February, but because there was so many people going in and out of the position for the zoning, this is why it's been delayed. But I do have a copy of that letter. I've submitted it a couple of times, but I have no problem with resubmitting it to Mr. Boria.
Mr. President, I suggest she just send us the letter again. That's
so
it.
Should we make, and I agree with you, Councilman Lay, should we make a motion to amend the ordinance that it is contingent upon Common Council receiving within 30 days or within, that seems reasonable, maybe less, days, a copy of this notarized letter?
Mr. President,
I'll turn it in to him tomorrow.
I would make a motion that the letter also be, before you sign off on this, that you will have that letter in your presence. But I also would make a motion with the concerns of the neighbors and some of my fellow colleagues there, that we will put a 1-year condition in place. So if there is any problem, we can revisit this in 1 year and we can take a vote at that time to continue to allow you to operate your daycare. But I would like to give you that opportunity to move forward. But there are concerns from neighbors and concern from some of my colleagues here too. But I would like to put a 1-year stipulation in place. So that's my motion at this time.
I think we need to separate those motions. I probably may vote for one and not vote for the other. So can we do those separately?
I like to keep them together.
And what's the
Guys vote no.
stipulation?
You can always divide the question. In
Right.
other
I think the
words,
question.
if I'm asking for a division, that automatically means it must be divided.
Okay, we can divide the motion. Let's take the first motion then to make sure that you get the letter within a week's time. Okay?
So let's just say that, okay. So there's a motion on the table that the petitioner will provide the common council either through the law department or the zoning department, a copy of the letter authorizing this use of the property within 7 calendar days. That's Councilman Brewer's motion. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded by Councilwoman Barnes Caldwell. Any questions or discussion? Seeing and hearing none, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Atkins,
Yes.
Councilman Brewer,
Yes.
Councilwoman Brown,
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell,
Yes.
Councilman Lay,
Yes.
Councilman Weatherspoon,
Yes.
Councilman Williams,
Yes.
and President Godwin.
Yes.
Mr. President, the vote is 8-0.
With a vote of 8-0, the ordinance is amended as stated in the motion.
So,
Councilman Brewer,
Mr. President, my second motion is to put a 1-year condition in place that this petition will come back before the city council within 1 year to reevaluate the daycare performance at that time.
Second.
been moved and properly seconded. Any questions or discussion?
I have a quick question.
Councilwoman Atkins?
So just in terms of the process, how are we notified within that 1 year?
I'm gonna make sure the staff notify us of the time that's coming up for the renewal. I know in the past we have done it, we have not got the proper notices. I don't know if we went for the executive branch to do it, but I think if this is our amendment, something that we're requesting, we probably should do it in-house. So I would ask the staff will put this on the calendar.
Okay. Well, I'm okay with supporting it if we come back in a year. I just wanted to make sure that if there's any additional concerns with the constituent base over there, that it's addressed.
Yes.
Okay.
May I ask Ms. Jackson, how long is your lease for?
I've been doing a yearly lease. However, once I operate and start operating the daycare, they will amend my lease because they wanted to add something to it different than what it was when I was just doing a residential lease. So my landlords will amend it and add some stipulations that they wanted to add since I was going to operate a business.
And I asked that, I guess, in part, and I voted to do this before in terms of having the 1 year condition. My concern is that it places a check on commerce, right? So if I'm opening up a business and my ability to function in that business is going to be checked within a year, I'm going to question the investments I may make in terms of capital improvements and other things at that particular location, which may become null and void if a third party over which I have no control decides that I can no longer do business. So that's my only concern, is that we place the business owner in a precarious situation of, to what extent should I make improvements or invest in this business when a third party could wipe it all out within only a year's time? That's the only concern that I have.
And I do have a question. Within the year, what is it that we're going to review? Are we reviewing neighbors' concerns, or what will we be reviewing within that year?
Well, yes, that's definitely will be my concern, is neighbor concerns, yes.
Okay.
Mr. President,
Councilman
we
Lay?
we certainly shouldn't be reviewing telephone calls. That's what we seem to be doing now. In all due respect, they should in fact, whoever they is, should send written communications to Ms. Jackson as well as to the council. If we receive none, why are we reviewing? I mean, we shouldn't do anything, we're not receiving anything. And I agree with you. It is a chilling effect on the operation of a business, a startup business. If you're saying, well, I'm going to give you 1 year, and then, possibly we get one person objecting and no one else saying anything. What do we do? I mean, what's the number? Do we are we asking the planning commission or her to resubmit letters again? I mean, how do we weigh what's going on there? Again, I don't understand how we weigh it unless we're going to and I wouldn't want to say that she should resubmit letters again. That would certainly have a chilling effect. So I probably will vote no in terms of this 1 year and reviewing, because I'm not sure how we're doing it. It's not clear to me. We're making a motion to do something, but the motion is incomplete.
Mr. President, I believe it would be complaint driven to rescind this motion here if there's a substantial number of complaints. I don't foresee that. I know you spoke toward as the improvements that she would have to do as far as her daycare. Would she do these improvements or not? It's definitely clear when you do a home daycare, you're not involved in the state, and there are certain things you have to do under state guidelines there. There's certain things that have to be in place because the Gary Fire Department comes out and do annual inspection. There's certain things that has to be in place for them to give the go-ahead for you to get your license from the state and also get your business license from the city. So there's two things that has to happen on the owner of the daycare that has to happen. Thank you.
And can I just add,
Ms. Jackson is recognized.
Can I add as well? With this business, I'm a single parent of 2 children. So everything that I'm doing to open my business is coming directly from my employment. I currently work for the state of Indiana at the DFR. So I'm spending all of my own money to try to open a business, to provide a better life for my children, to bring something to the neighborhood. And like Councilman Lay stated, I will be spending a lot of money to open this business with no grants, no help, no nothing. And then for that 1 year to come around and be like, well, someone said this. And so to me, that would be totally unfair. I've been living here for a year. I haven't had any neighbors complain to me about anything that I'm currently doing. I would like to continue to live in this neighborhood. It is a very great neighborhood. I really feel safe. I live around a lot of, older people, so they kind of look out for me, saying it's just me and the kids. I have people across the street that if my garbage is not pulled, they'll pull it for me. I have the man next door. If my grass, he can cut, when he cut his grass, he'll cut mine. So I don't know where the concerns are coming from. There is a daycare in the center, right around the corner from me, but I feel like the need for childcare is so big that my business won't affect their business or anyone else's business. I just want to do something that break generational curses for my children. And I really have a love for children. So that's why I wanted to do the daycare. Like I said, I have a 5-year-old and a 14-year-old. And with my current business that I'm doing with the state, me needing childcare or your kids being sick and you have to miss work, for me, missing any kind of income affects my whole household. So the best thing for me is to work for myself. That way I'm always providing for my children. And so that's just one of my concerns, because I am spending a lot of money. With the mailings, I spent almost $500 to send out 67 mailings from the post office. Along with the filing fee for the special use was $220, $100 for the fire or the building inspection, and another $150 for the business license. That's a lot of money to spend. And then for 1 year, someone come back and say, well, your neighbors feel as though, and I really want to take into consideration of all my neighbors. I don't want to affect them in any way because they own their property and I'm currently renting. So I just wanted to say that.
Ms. Jetson, let me just say, sometimes people have to see something in action to really feel like it's not a threat to them. It's not going to bring down the property value. I say that from experience. My wife operates a daycare and we pretty much was in the same situation you was in. So to the people credit that have lived in that neighborhood, I just can't dismiss that They have lived there a number of years and put the money and investment to their property also. But I think you would do exactly what you say you're going to do and put your best foot forward. As you just outlined, you have put your own money out already, and you're going to continue to put out more. You're not going to let residents come there with loud music and disrupt the neighborhood. I think that's your home at the end of the day too. So I believe you would do just that. So I don't feel like you would have anything to worry about.
Mr. President.
Councilman Lay and then Councilman Witherspoon.
Matter of fact, I was representing the council when Mr. Brewer came through. We didn't put the council, I should say. I was not a member of the council, the attorney for the council. We did not put any such restrictions, and certainly your neighbors, some were far away. I can remember the names. Of course, I won't repeat it. They certainly objected to the daycare center. And again, we didn't, the council, I keep saying we, I apologize for that, but the council put no such restriction that we're now placing on Ms. Jackson. As I recall, you were not told to go away and come back within a year. It was passed by that council. So I would suggest we should do the same thing here, because you did have a lot of people complaining that you were changing the makeup of the neighborhood.
And that's why I outlined that also. And if those restriction was in place, I would have complied. But I have seen that this has worked. We have not had one person that, since we have put the restrictions in, where we had to pull it back, any of the daycares.
I was talking about the year. That's what I was talking about. That was not placed upon you.
Yes, no, it wasn't.
Councilman Witherspoon.
Yes, Ms. Jackson, I have a couple of questions to ask, and by no stretch of the imagination are my questions to indicate that I am not in favor of your venture and what you're attempting to do. But you stated that you work full-time for the DFR, am I correct?
I currently work, yes.
What is the DFR? What is that? Could you help me with that acronym?
The Division of Family Resources, so basically the food stamp office for medical TANF food stamp.
It's a full-time job?
Yes.
So my question is, who will run your daycare? And what will be the hours of your daycare?
So once I'm approved through all of I'm leaving that job. My daycare will be my full-time job. I just didn't want to quit a full-time job, not knowing if I'm going to be approved to operate the daycare.
Thank you, appreciate that.
Any other questions or discussion? And I guess I do have a question, and perhaps Attorney Williams or Mr. Berea can help me on this. Just generally speaking, regardless of whether this particular provision is included in the ordinance related to the 1-year conditional matter, does the city, through code enforcement or police department or what have you, have the ability to shut down a business if there are problems or tremendous laws being broken or disturbances that are happening or traffic issues that are happening as it relates to any business? And of course, in this case, we're talking about a home-based daycare.
Mr. President, if I could answer you, absolutely. You know, there are certain nuisance ordinances and nuisance actual state statutes that provide the city with the ability to petition for an injunction if there are any types of activities that are going on that are preventing the safe and peaceful enjoyment of the property surrounding that particular establishment.
And so, Mr. Pohl, that would give the petitioner or any business owner due process should such charge or violation be, as opposed to a legislative body making a administrative decision.
That is one method of ensuring that that a business that is a nuisance is not allowed to continue operating. Yes, but yeah, I would agree with the sentiment.
Thank you. So I will not be voting for this amendment. I think it, as I said earlier, has a chilling effect on business owners. I think there's already local ordinances that could deal with any overwhelming circumstances that may happen this year, 5 years from now, or whenever, as it relates to the property. And certainly we know the state oversees some of this, and there's other regulators who are involved in terms of the quality of the daycare. So I will vote no on this amendment. Any other questions or discussion? Seeing and hearing none, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Atkins,
Oh, this, just so we had a long discussion. This is related to the motion on the table to include a line in this ordinance that the grant of this special use would end or could potentially be reviewed within 1 year to determine whether or not the business owner would be able to continue using the property in this way.
Okay. Yes.
Councilman Brewer,
Yes.
Councilwoman Brown,
No.
Councilwoman Caldwell,
Yes.
Councilman Lay,
No.
Councilman Weatherspoon,
No.
Councilman Williams,
Yes.
President Godwin.
No.
Mr. President, the vote is 4 yes, 4 no's.
With 4 yes and 4 no votes, the amendment fails for lack of sufficient votes. So at this time, is there a motion to consider, lost my place, CPO
64.
64 as initially, as amended? And remember, that's just the amendment to ensure that we are given the proof of the owner's permission for this use. Is there a motion to pass it as amended?
It's already on the floor, Mr. President.
I'm sorry, it's already on the floor. So we can have roll call on passing CPO 2020-64 as amended.
Councilwoman Atkins,
I've been swayed. Yes.
Councilman Brewer,
Yes.
Councilwoman Brown,
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell,
Yes.
Councilman Lay,
Yes.
Councilman Weatherspoon,
Yes.
Councilman Williams,
Yes.
and President Godwin.
Yes.
Mr. President, the vote is 8-0.
With 8 votes, CPO 2020-64 as amended passes and is so ordered.
Thank you all so much. I really
Welcome.
appreciate it.
CPO 2020-65, an ordinance amending Title 15 entitled Land Usage, Chapter 123 entitled Zoning Code of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Gary, Indiana. Petitioner Nicola Katansky, 127 North Broad Street, Griffith, Indiana. Property at 320 West Ridge Road, Gary, Indiana.
Councilman Brewer is recognized.
Mr. President, move for passage of CPO 2020-65 on third and final.
Second.
Moved and properly seconded by Councilwoman Barnes Caldwell. We'll have the overview at this time by Mr. Berea.
Petitioner Nikola Kutansky is petitioning for a tattoo parlor to be located at 320 Ridge Road. For this property, 75 mailings were sent. Out of 75 mailings, we had 2 back, 1 opposed, 1 not opposed. The one that was opposed listed a number of items that we went over in Plan Council, and they included citing that Roy Boys was nearby, wanting the type of clientele that goes into a tattoo parlor in the area, citing Bible passages, and general concern for a tattoo parlor in the area. The staff, moving on to the staff recommendation, looking at the map of the zoning map and the GIS map for the city of Gary, that's included in the packet. If we're having a tattoo parlor, this area on Ridge Road would be a suitable location to have such a tattoo parlor. And the staff recommendation is with tattoos becoming mainstream, tattoo parlors no longer have the negative stigma they once had, and this business could contribute tax revenue to the city. That concludes the staff overview.
Thank you, Mr. Berea. Is Mr. Katansky? Ms. Katansky, I'm sorry. Would you
I'm
like to add anything?
We have actually, there was a demolished building, a house that was a fire behind our shop. They had left some debris and whatnot back there. We cleared off the foundation of the garage. So we've been able to park vehicles back there when we've had our free barbecue giveaways that we've done every couple weeks, since we haven't been able to officially open yet. So we have been trying to give back to the community. We have had quite a few people stop in and ask when we will be open, when we can do business. We've actually had a couple of your officers inquire about receiving tattoos. So yes, there is not a stigma on who gets tattooed anymore. And we have sufficiently provided spaces for parking. We moved our back fence, got rid of the back fence to where it was completely up against the alley. And it is no longer that way. So we actually have room for 3 or 4 cars behind our building. And we cleared out that foundation of the garage behind us in the alley.
Mr. President?
Thank you. Councilman Barnes Caldwell is recognized.
Last week, my request was that we got paperwork saying that the property that they were going to be parking on and any other property that we got paperwork from those people saying they had permission. And just so happened Sunday, I went through and they were parked on the sidewalk. And I was like, we don't park on the sidewalk in the city of Gary.
No, I was actually not there on Sunday. I believe my boyfriend was, and he took my daughter up there because he was trying to make snow cones with her, and he had to meet somebody off of Marketplace to get the snow cone machine. But there's actually gravel next to the sidewalk so as to not block the sidewalk.
But this car was actually parked on the sidewalk, east-west, straight on the sidewalk. I really wish I would have took a picture and I'd be able to see and show it. But yeah.
Well, I apologize for that, and I can guarantee you that is not something that happens often. We can put a sign out front as well if needed. There is a pole right there.
Do we get the letters that about the property?
So the gentleman next door said that he, due to liability, he does not want anything on record with the town of Gary. But like I said, we have since fixed the parking issue with the COVID and everything. We would still be under restriction to 1 client at a time. So there would never be more than 2 or 3 cars at a time. Right now, I would be the only artist there, and I can only accept 1 client at a time anyways.
Any other questions or discussion for the petitioner or Mr. Berea? Or anyone else? All right. Well, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Atkins,
Yes.
Councilman Brewer,
Yes.
Councilwoman Brown,
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell,
No.
Councilman Lay,
Yes.
Councilman Weatherspoon,
Yes.
Councilman Williams,
Yes.
and President Godwin.
Yes.
Mr. President, vote is 7 yes, 1 no.
With 7 yes votes and 1 no vote, CPO 2020-65 passes and is so ordered.
Thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome.
CPO 2020-66, an ordinance amending Title 15 entitled Land Usage, Chapter 123 entitled Zoning Code of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Gary, Indiana. Petitioner Marquita Cox, P.O. Box 931, Sherville, Indiana. Property is 719 West Street, First Place, Gary.
Mr. President, I want to ask a question. Is the petitioner here on the call? Because I'm asking that question because the petitioner did not show up at the committee hearing, and it's our custom that the petitioner must show up at the committee hearing for us to hear it on third and final. So is the petitioner here, Ms. Cox? Or
Mr.
has?
President, can I speak? This is
Yeah.
Steve Jenkins with the Law Department. I believe at the last Planning Commission meeting, we left this one in committee, correct? Because she was not there at that time. So we were going to revisit that in committee.
So have you all had any contact with the petitioner, let her know that she has to attend the committee hearing to hear it?
Actually, the situation is a bit more complex than that. What happened was I drafted this ordinance a little prematurely. This petitioner was actually at the most recent BZA meeting, which was that was last week. So this ordinance will probably need to come back at a later time, period. Like regardless of whether we left it at committee before. So it's a bit more complex, but regardless, she won't be here tonight.
Mr. President.
Councilman Witherspoon.
Yeah, the petitioner has just sent a text, or I'm sorry, a chat saying that she is here.
We need to move her to the panelists. Media team, can you move Marquita Cox to the panelists?
Well, Mr. President, before we get to the petitioner, Mr. Jenkins was just saying something. Now, you said this is, where is this at?
Right. She just her petition was just passed at the BZA meeting last week, so we should not be hearing this one on third and final right now. Anyway, it also didn't go to committee because she was not there at that time, which was too early. Basically, this ordinance was drafted far too early. She shouldn't be at this stage right now, not tonight.
Well, I understand that my plan is not to move it on third and final. I'm going to put it back in committee.
It hasn't even been assigned to a committee though, I don't think, right?
No, we hit this in committee already. She wasn't present.
Okay.
And of course, quite naturally, it moves to third and final. So I'm making a motion to move it back to committee, but at that time that she'll put us in line where she needs to be at then. Is that correct, Mr. Jenkins?
So since her petition was just passed at the BZA last week, her petition should actually be for a first reading with the next council meeting.
Right.
That should be where this is in the proper order. So it's because I drafted this far too early. It's just completely out of order right now. I would need to submit this for first reading the next council meeting.
Do we want, just in the interest of time, to add it to the agenda for first reading? I mean, I know we have a lot of these, and we're reaching the end of the year, and so.
Mr. President,
Councilman Brown, and then Councilman.
our process has always been, if you don't show up for the committee meeting, then we do not hear your whatever it is, your petition.
I think
and that's been our process. It doesn't matter who it is.
Right.
So.
But I think what has happened, I think what Attorney Jenkins is saying is that we haven't even assigned this to a committee yet. So it would have been inappropriate for her to be at the committee meeting.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, go ahead. You're the chair.
It has been signed to the planning development. We heard it at the last planning development meeting.
Okay.
But Mr. Jenkins is saying that it was drafted prematurely, but it'll still put us at the state where we're at now anyway. If it go back to committee, if you assign it tonight and on first reading, it will go to first and second, go to committee anyway. So it's still part of the process. So I just want my reason for asking for the petitioner, if she was here, to make sure she's at the committee hearing, for we can have this discussion about what she wants to do.
Madam Clerk, just because I'm not sure that's what Attorney Jenkins is saying. So,
okay, I'm sorry. So I'll try to clarify one more time. Sorry about that. I know this is a confusing situation. So this ordinance was on first reading before it should have been. So her petition just passed the BZA last week.
That means it passed after our last council meeting.
Yeah.
Right. So that means it's impossible that's been assigned to a committee.
Well, so
our last council meeting was October 6th, right?
Mr. Chair, I think it shouldn't have been in our packet, period, because the BZA meeting had not even been completed. So it was in our packet. This ordinance was already drafted, but it had not been presented before the BZA. So that's the error.
Gotcha.
So it was in our packet, it was assigned, we did first and second reading, it was in committee. However, it had not even been in front of the BZA. So that's the issue.
Yeah.
Mr. President,
Councilman Lay.
I believe your recommendation that we simply suspend the rules, place it on, you now assign it on first reading, first and second, and that should certainly resolve the problem. We'll be back in line, and of course it goes to the committee. But you know that actually put it back in line. Attorney Jenkins is saying it came before us, it shouldn't have been there, that it's a mistake. So the best way to correct the mistake is simply what you've already suggested. That seems to make more sense than anything else I've heard.
Thank you, Councilman Lay. So let's just correctly now and in the proper form, since we obviously inappropriately did it earlier this month, entertain, is that a motion, Councilman Lay?
Yes.
All right, entertain Councilman Lay's motion. Is there a second? Second.
I guess I need to withdraw my motion on third and final.
Right, so you withdrawn your motion.
No, I didn't. I'm sorry. Move forward. I never made the motion. Go ahead. You're good. You're on it.
Okay. All right, so at this point, it's been moved and properly seconded by Councilman Witherspoon and Godwin. Any questions or discussion? Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Atkins,
Yes.
Councilman Brewer,
Yes.
Councilwoman Brown,
Well, yeah, well, my vote is no. What am I voting on? Am I voting to send this to committee or what?
We're adding it to the agenda to take it back to first reading, as it wasn't appropriately
then,
put on.
okay, then my vote is yes. I'm sorry.
Councilwoman Caldwell,
Yes.
Councilman Lang,
Yes.
Councilman Witherspoon,
Yes.
Councilman Williams,
Yes.
and President Godwin.
Yes.
Mr. President, vote is 8-0.
With a vote of 8-0, we have added CPO 2020-66 to the agenda on first reading. I want to make sure I do this correctly, and I am going to assign it to the Planning and Development Committee. Do we need to now?
I mean, second reading. Okay.
So at this point, I'm going to turn to Councilman Brewer to see if he will accept CPO 2020-66.
Yes. It has to go through the process where the clerk will have to read it on first reading.
Right.
Go through the whole process.
Right. Please proceed, Madam Clerk.
CPO 2020-66, an ordinance amending Title 15 entitled Land Usage, Chapter 123 entitled Zoning Code of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Gary, Indiana. Petitioner Marquita Cox, P.O. Box 931, Sherrville, Indiana. Property at 719 West 51st Place, Gary.
Planning and Development. Councilman Brewer is recognized.
Mr. President, the Planning and Development has before CPO 2020-67. I approve this for reporting out on first reading. Councilwoman Atkins.
Yes.
Councilman Witherspoon.
I believe it's 66, not 67, isn't it?
That's correct, 66.
Correct, it's 66.
CPO 2020-66. Mr. President, a majority of the Planning and Development Committee has approved CPO 2020-66 on first reading.
Thank you, Councilman Brewer. Councilman Brewer.
The Planning and Development Committee would like to report out CPO 2020-66 on first reading.
Thank you. And we'll come back to this during second reading.
Yes.
All right. So at this point, parliamentarian and attorney Williams, is appropriate now that we move to CPO 2020-67, Madam Clerk?
CPO 2020-67, an ordinance revising 2020 appropriations for the Police Department Operating Budgets Fund 254 Auction Fund for the fiscal year beginning January 1st, 2020, ending December 31st, 2020. Sponsored by Mayor Jerome A. Prince, City of Gary.
President.
Councilwoman Brown.
I move for passage of CPO 2020-67 on third and final reading.
Second.
Been moved and properly seconded by Councilwoman Barnes Caldwell. We'll have an overview at this time. This is Attorney Colvin. I also see that the Police Chief Evans is on.
Good afternoon. Can everyone hear me? CPO, this ordinance is for the use of our towing funds, which we have in a non-reverting fund, fund number 254, for the usage of the repair, maintenance, and purchase of either police cars, repair parts, or car parts for police equipment, such as computers, lights, sirens, whole vehicles, or any of the repairs that we do, such as replacing parts, tires, and any of the ancillary costs that go along with that. In addition, it provides funding for officers and civilian staff from the finance department to work the auctions, which we have quarterly. We try to have quarterly. This year wasn't possible because of COVID. And for those persons which have to be off to be paid for their time and to host the auction, and those funds go into 254 too. The funding sources is for my towing fees, our towing release fees, and our auction. Since the inception or the creation of this fund, it allows the police department to absorb these funds for the cost of repairing and maintaining our fleet and buying police equipment only, and taking that burden off of the general fund of the city.
Thank you, Chief Evans. Any questions or discussions for the chief or? Seeing and hearing none, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Atkins.
Yes.
Councilman Brewer.
Yes.
Councilwoman Brown.
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell.
Yes.
Councilman Lay.
Yes.
Councilman Witherspoon.
Yes.
Councilman Williams.
Yes.
President Godwin.
Yes.
Mr. President, the vote is 8-0.
For the vote of 8-0, CPO 2020-67 passes and is so ordered.
CPO 2020-69, an ordinance approving the amendment of garbage collection fees for users located in the city of Gary, sponsored by Mayor Jerome Prince, city of Gary.
Councilwoman Atkins.
Mr. President, the meeting that was initially scheduled for October 13th was canceled, and I would like to reschedule that Ways and Means Committee meeting. We do have the finance stuff on October the 27th. So I don't know if it'd be better for the council to just focus on that, and then we can come back and have the committee meeting on November the 10th.
That would be great.
At 5:30.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded to refer CPO 2020-69 to the Ways and Means Committee with a meeting on Tuesday, November 10th, 2020 at 5:30?
5:30.
5:30 p.m. It's been moved and properly second. Any questions or discussion?
Mr. President,
Councilman Lay?
we seem to be redoing the whole purpose for committees. As I understand, committees is where you receive information. As I understand, we asked for all of the information prior to the committee meeting, and then then it was moved because we didn't receive the information, which in fact, when you receive it like that, and of course is only my meager opinion, I think you violated the open door law. In other words, questions should be sent to individuals so they can be prepared to answer, but not to send the council in its entirety the answers to questions. We don't need a committee meeting if we have all of the answers to the questions, other than we violated Indiana open door law.
Councilman Atkins may want to respond, but my understanding of it was that we wanted to get the materials in advance so that there would be sufficient time to review it, so that our questions at the committee meeting would be on point and not trying to scramble and read and review and answer questions all at the same time. So Councilwoman Atkins?
Absolutely, that was the only intent. And I, did not know if that was an issue, but to have an efficient committee meeting, that was the purpose of me just asking for that information for the discussion, to lead the discussion. And I think that was stated in the memo as well, that we were going to review the information in the committee meeting as well. And also the meeting with council But I did confirm prior to canceling that meeting with our attorney that I really didn't need a reason to cancel the meeting. But that was the only reason, is because there was no acknowledgement of the email or receipt for that to have an efficient meeting.
Mr. President, I guess
Councilman Lay.
with your permission, I guess my position is what you do when you're asking people. I've never seen where we've asked all questions to be answered. Now, maybe this is something new for this council. Answer all questions, and then we will have a meeting. Certainly, we would appear to be more intelligent than we are because we know the answer to the questions. It would seem to me you should just simply inform the persons that are coming what the issues are. And here are the following questions you will be asked, and for them to properly prepare at that time. So the first time the information comes to the council, it is in a recognized meeting of the council, as opposed to outside of a meeting of the council. And I think that's one of the things I will deal with on tomorrow, on October the 21st, based upon this particular ordinance.
So,
But
Mr. Chair, if I could
Councilwoman
respond.
Atkins.
So I know that we always refer to what was done in the past, but I wasn't on the council in the past. And so the way that I lead, I'm now the chair of this committee. And so that is the way that I wanted to lead the committee. The council did not provide information. I provided a number of bullet points to be prepared prior to lead a discussion. So therefore, in the committee meeting, the balance of the body could have absolutely probed and had additional questions. Those were just the questions that I wanted to have prepared prior to us having a meeting as the chair of the Ways and Means. That's it. It was not a representation of the council. So therefore, I felt that it was helpful for you all to have that information because this is what I wanted to have to lead an effective and efficient discussion. That was all the intent behind that.
Williams.
Mr. Chair, yes, in fact, Councilwoman Atkins did phone me about this situation. I wholeheartedly disagree with Councilman Lay. I don't even see in the furthest stretch of the open door that this is a violation of open door. There was no convening of council members. She was only seeking information. So as far as my legal opinion, I don't see any harm in what the councilwoman did. And I will confirm and stand by my answer to her question as to her position in counseling, the Ways and Means Commission being that of her prerogative as the chairman of the committee.
My last comment, Mr. Chairman, Indiana Code 5-14.1-5 has been in existence. That is in fact state law. My reasoning is not based upon reading the statute, it's based upon actual litigation. I have litigated this point very successful, where in fact a person has asked for all of the questions to be answered outside of the public view. Again, if you give it to the council in its entirety, there basically would be very.
All right, thank you, council members Lay and Atkins and Attorney Williams. I did have one clarification question, which of course we can go through in the committee and we'll go through, but I've heard a lot of different numbers floating around, and I see 2745 on here, but I've also heard a 28 number. So if the current number that's in Exhibit A on this ordinance is incorrect, I think we want to make sure that when we get to the committee meeting, we are dealing with whatever the accurate request is. Mr. Vicari, or is it correct? It says 2745. We're getting some feedback.
Yeah, the correct number is 2825.
Okay.
The prior number, I believe, in the exhibit to the ordinance was assuming that the rate would have been approved by council months prior. The current rate of 2825 assumes it would be approved January, for effective date of January 1st.
Okay, so I would suggest then that, let's see who prepared this one, that Attorney Pohl from the city ensure that we have a correct version that's part of the packet, and that will be part of our discussion at the committee meeting.
Okay. Yeah, I'll have our attorney work with Attorney Pohl to make sure that's updated.
Okay. Thank you. So any other questions and discussion about the motion to send this to a committee meeting for November 10th? Seeing and hearing none, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Atkins,
Yes.
Councilman Brewer,
Yes.
Councilwoman Brown,
No.
Councilwoman Caldwell,
Yes.
Councilman Lay,
Yes.
Councilman Weatherspoon,
Yes.
Councilman Williams,
Yes.
and President Godwin.
Yes.
This President vote is 7 yes, 1 no.
With a vote of 7 yeas and 1 nay, CPO 2020-69 is sent to the Ways and Means Committee with a committee meeting to be held on Tuesday, November 10th, 2020 at 5:30 p.m.
CPR 2020-14, resolution by the Gary Common Council in support of Edgewater Health for meritorious service during the COVID-19 pandemic and establishing August 9th through the 15th, 2020 as National Health Center Week in Gary, Indiana, sponsored by Cozy Weatherspoon, Councilman 2nd District.
Councilman Weatherspoon.
Mr. President, that was the resolution had been amended. And the resolution actually reads a resolution by the Gary Common Council in support of Edgewater, Edgewater Health, Oak Street Health, Community Health Net, Methodist Hospitals, our health commissioner, Dr. Roland Walker, and the Gary Health Department, the Gary Police Department, the Gary Fire Department, Gary EMS, local physicians, the medical professionals for their service during the COVID-19 pandemic and establishing August 9th through the 15th, 2020 as the National Health Center Week in Gary, Indiana. That is how the resolution actually reads. And, you know, as you all know, this resolution, you know, is something that I tried to and get through about a month ago. But in talking to Councilman Williams in the 6th District, amongst my other colleagues, a few of my other colleagues, I recognized that I could not possibly recognize Edgewater and Edgewater alone, especially when our own first responders have been dealing with this COVID issue. As many of you may or may not be aware, to date, we have in Gary, Indiana alone, we've had over 1,700 cases of COVID-19. And as of the 18th, which was a few days ago, we had 85 deaths in this community. And, you know, these individuals have served on the front line in battling this ailment, battling this pandemic. And the whole purpose of the resolution is just to recognize them for their efforts and also to recognize August 9th through the 15th of this past year and future years going forward as being National Health Week in the city of Gary. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Weatherspoon. The version that I have has as amended on October 20th, 2020. So I think what we need to do is entertain a motion to amend CPO 2020-14. And I think you pretty much stated what the amendment is. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
That's correct. So would you make that motion? You're making that motion basically, right?
Yes, I'll make the motion. I move to amend CPR 2020-14 to, as I've just previously stated.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Is it moved and properly seconded by Councilwoman Barnes Caldwell? Any questions or discussion? Seeing and hearing none, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Atkins,
Yes.
Councilman Brewer,
Yes.
Councilwoman Brown,
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell,
Yes.
Councilman Lay,
Yes.
Councilman Weatherspoon,
Yes.
Councilman Williams,
Yes.
and President Godwin.
Yes.
This President vote is 8-0.
With a vote of 8-0, CPO 2020-14 is amended. Is there any other questions or discussion about CPO 2020-14 as amended?
Mr. President.
Councilman Brewer?
Just a comment. I think this is a very good resolution here that's in place for all our first responders that have worked throughout this pandemic that we have experienced. I want to say I took my first COVID-19 test just last Monday, and I would just encourage everyone, you know, I had the fears like a lot of people have of something being stuck in your nose, but it wasn't as what I thought it was going to be. So I would encourage everyone to take the test to see where you are at. If you have the symptoms or don't have the symptoms, or they feel like you've been around a lot of people, just take the test to make sure that you're healthy, you're not spreading this virus to anyone else. So I would just encourage everyone to take the test. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilman Brewer. When you said that at first, I started to move over a little bit.
Oh, you started coughing.
I do want the public to know that we are being socially distant here. We certainly know that this is a very important issue and that our community has suffered greatly. And we continue to encourage all residents to wear masks and to socially distance and to celebrate our heroes, both in the uniform and public servants and others who are helping our city to combat COVID-19. And so I thank Councilman Weatherspoon for taking the lead on this resolution. And I hope that in the spirit of what I think Councilman Lay might say, that we will distribute this resolution in a way that it goes somewhere. That is to say that we will ensure that these persons know that we have done this, and maybe it can be presented to them in some kind of nice way. And maybe there's even some nice gesture that we can do as a way to tangibly show our support. We can discuss that.
Mr. President.
Councilman Brewer.
I left out one important thing. My results came back negative. So
excellent. Excellent.
Councilwoman Brown cut her eye over this way. So we're good.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Any other members discuss CPO 2020-14? All right. So is there a motion to pass CPO 2020-14 as amended? It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded by Council members Brewer and Barnes Caldwell. I don't think we need any further questions or discussion. Seeing none, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Atkins.
Yes.
Councilman Brewer.
Yes.
Councilwoman Brown.
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell.
Yes.
Councilman Lay.
Yes.
Councilman Weatherspoon.
Yes.
Councilman Williams.
Yes.
And President Godwin.
Yes.
Mr. President, the vote is 8-0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. With a vote of 8-0, CPO 2020-14 passes.
Mr. President, pending ordinances and resolutions on third and final.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. This time we'll have council pending ordinances and resolutions on second reading.
CPO 2020-66, an ordinance amending Title 15 entitled Land Usage, Chapter 123 entitled Zoning Code of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Gary, Indiana. Petitioner Marquita Cox, P.O. Box 931, Cherville, Indiana. Property at 719 West 51st Place, Gary, Indiana.
Councilman Brewer is recognized.
Mr. President, I move for CPO 2020-66 to go to committee on second reading.
Second.
Been moved and properly seconded by Councilman Barnes Caldwell. Any questions or discussion? Seeing and hearing none, roll call, Madam Clerk.
President, I neglected to give the time. That's October the 27th at 5 p.m. and a public hearing November
2nd
at 6 p.m. via Zoom.
Thank you. Duly noted. Any questions or discussion?
President,
Councilman Williams.
I didn't hear the date. Did you say November 7th?
October 27th.
October 27th. Okay, thank you.
5 p.m.
All right. Any other questions or discussion? Seeing and hearing none, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Atkins.
Yes.
Councilman Brewer.
Yes.
Councilwoman Brown.
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell.
Yes.
Councilman Lay.
Yes.
Councilman Weatherspoon.
Yes.
Councilman Williams.
Yes.
And President Godwin.
Yes.
Mr. President, the vote is 8-0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. With a vote of 8-0, CPO 2020-66 passes on second reading with a Planning and Development Committee meeting to be held on Tuesday, October 27th, 2020 at 5:00 p.m. via Zoom.
Mr. President, is pending ordinances and resolutions on second reading.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I did want to ensure I was doing something properly, Attorney Williams. and our parliamentarian. Did we need to vote on changing our meeting from November 3rd to November 2nd?
Yes.
The dean, well, I got to be careful saying dean because Councilman Lay is the dean.
No, I'm no longer dean. No.
Well, let me-
I'm just here.
well,
I'm just
I'll
here.
say the provost, Councilman Lay, and the dean, Councilwoman Brown. So I think that's correct. So Councilman Brown, will you entertain a motion that Councilman Lay might second to move our meeting from November 3rd, 2020 to November 2nd, 2020 at 6 o'clock p.m.?
My motion is that we move our meeting from Tuesday, November 3rd to, are we gonna have Monday or Wednesday?
Monday.
November 2nd.
Second.
Moved it properly. Seconded. Any questions or discussion? I will just quickly say that, of course, the initial reason for November 2nd was to ensure that we were in compliance with the deadline for any action to be taken on the 2021 budget. But also, given that the election was on Tuesday, I thought that we might combine our efforts and just have our full regular council meeting to consider all issues, not limited to the budget, which of course will take up most of our time. Any other questions or discussion? Seeing and hearing none, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Atkins,
Yes.
Councilman Brewer,
Yes.
Councilwoman Brown,
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell,
Yes.
Councilman Lay,
Yes.
Councilman Witherspoon,
Yes.
Councilman Williams,
Yes.
and President Dowd.
Yes.
Mr. President, the vote is 8-0.
With a vote of 8-0, the regular meeting of the Gary Common Council, the next regular meeting, is moved from Tuesday, November 3rd, 2020 to Monday, November 2nd, 2020 at 6 o'clock p.m. via Zoom as well as in person, another hybrid meeting. All right. So at this point, we have reached our mayor's report and therein questions of city officials.
Mr. President.
Councilman Lay is recognized.
I would like to go back and ask Mr. Berea as well as Councilman Brewer. How many letters in this 3978 Martin Luther King Drive, how many letters were sent out and how many came back negative?
I'm not sure Mr. Berea, oh, he's here, Mr. Berea.
Yeah, I just had on mute. 3978 Martin Luther King Drive sent out 64 letters, 2 opposed, no, not opposed.
Okay. Mr. Brewer, you indicated, and I should have asked this at the time, I should have preferenced my vote. You indicated there was a letter. What's the source of that letter?
There was a letter that was sent to Attorney, I believe Attorney Poe and our attorney, Attorney Williams, that I think we need to do some discussion on. There was a heavy discussion that took place about this one in the committee meeting there. There was some accusation that was put out, and there was some information that I'm still waiting to get from the police department also to clarify some of these things that was brought up.
I'm sorry, my question was not clear. What is the source of the letter? Who's sending the letter?
Attorney Lay, oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, the petitioner sent the letter to Attorney Poe. He forwarded to me. I forwarded to all the council members, including you. I sent it to your personal email. So if you didn't get it, I'll resend. Attorney Poe has
It
sent.
may be
sent a
my failure to
photograph.
read as opposed to failure to receive. That's why I asked the question of Mr. Brewer, the name of where it came from. So it came from the petitioner. I don't care how many handoffs in the relay, but it came from the petitioner. Is that correct?
The letter came from the petitioner. The email will be from me that you're looking for.
I'm not concerned with the emails. No, I'm not concerned with that. I just needed, if he answered the petitioner, that answered the question. Your answer does not apply to the question, but thank you anyway.
All right. Is that resolved? Okay, at this point, we will have Attorney Colvin, are you providing the mayor's report?
I don't have a report, sir.
Okay, well, at this time, I guess we'll have questions of city officials. And I did want to get clarification. We said that the State of the City address is going to be on October 30th. Is there a time, location, or method for viewing or participating?
You'll be receiving correspondence this week, letting you
Okay.
know those details.
All right, thank you.
Mr. President,
Councilman Lay?
my question go to Attorney Coleman. Will we actually receive a written report of the State of the Union address prior to it being given?
Prior to, I'm sorry, prior to,
Okay.
I didn't
I
hear
was,
the last part.
I'm sorry, ma'am. What did you
I
say?
just said I didn't hear the last sentence you said.
Okay, I would assume Mayor Prince is going to read the State of the City address. And I was simply asking, will one be made available so the council, or maybe I'm the only one that wants to follow along in terms of what is being said?
In advance, you're asking?
Yes, ma'am, in advance.
I'm not sure, Councilman, but I can let you know.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions of city officials?
I have a question.
Councilwoman Barnes Caldwell?
I am in search of a shelter for homeless people. I know the cities is not open right now, and Calumet Township isn't accepting people. So if anyone knows of a shelter, I have a few residents in my neighborhood that need assistance.
I'll have Mrs. George to contact you, Councilwoman.
We corresponded over the weekend.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
The other question, if you have need of emergency shelter, I can give you a reference for that too.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
I wanted to ask, I know that we did receive, and thank you, the list of individuals who were not in compliance with the city's residency ordinance. And I want to make sure I was reading it correctly. It said one set of people, I guess, were grandfathered in and another set were not. Is it the bottom set that was not grandfathered in the sense that they are the ones who are out of compliance?
I'm sorry, I keep muting myself. If I recall correctly, the actual document was color coded.
Right.
And those that are color coded are the ones that are not in compliance.
Okay. So I guess my only question, or maybe request, would be, what is the plan of action? Right. So if these individuals are in violation of the ordinance, we know there is a pathway for folks to either be exempt from it, and that will require a petition before this body. Some people may be within their first 6 months, or they have a plan to correct themselves. Is there a plan of action, essentially, is the question.
That's something that we're still discussing, but certainly the ordinance will be followed.
Okay, because there was quite a lot of people. So
there are a number, yes.
It was not, 2 or 3 people. So
right, and given that it affects, I guess, all branches, well, except for the council, other branches of government as well, they have to be taken into account as well.
All right.
Because there are people from the court and from the clerk's office.
Thank you. And I guess I know we got a lot going on, but I guess, do you think by November 2nd, you could give us some update on
I will try to, sir. If I can, I'll let you know.
Absolutely. Much appreciated. Any other questions or discussions for city officials?
No.
Councilman Brewer?
Mr. President, thank you. I would just like to announce that I would like to have a snow plan meeting November 10th at 5 p.m. I know the weather is going up and down right now, but the snow is definitely going to come eventually. And I know myself and Councilman Weatherspoon sits on that committee there, and we would like all involved participants to be at that meeting to make sure that we're properly prepared to handle the snow whenever it comes. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilman Brewer. I guess that's Attorney Colvin. You'll be following up on that.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Any other questions of city officials? All right. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So move, Mr. President.
We stand adjourned. Have a great evening.